You're watching BCTV. We're all about Branford. You're watching BCTV, Branford Government Television, a service of Branford Community Television. This program is brought to you in part through the support of the town of Branford.
We'll call this meeting of the Branford Planning Zoning Commission to order. It is Thursday, January 14th, 2021. I have 7:04 p.m. I'll introduce members of our commission and staff. At this time, John Lust, commission member, are you here?
John Lust, present.
Joe Viuso, commission member, are you here?
You are unmuted.
Joe Viuso, present.
Fred Russo, commission member, are you here?
Present.
Joe Chadwick, commission member, are you here?
Joe Chadwick is present.
Marcy Pelusi, commission member, are you here?
Marcy Pelusi, present.
Paul Higgins, commission member, are you here?
Paul Higgins is here.
And Massimo Ligori, are you here?
Massimo Ligori is present.
Also, and I'm Chuck Anderson, chair. I'm also present. Our staff this evening, our town planner, Harry Smith. Harry, are you here?
Harry Smith present.
And our clerk, recording secretary, Michelle Martin. Michelle, I think you're here. You now serve.
Yes, I'm here, Michelle.
Thank you. At this time, I'm going to ask our secretary to read the notice of public hearing.
Just a minute. Part of it's blocked. The Planning and Zoning Commission of the town of Branford, Connecticut hereby gives notice of public hearings to be held on Thursday, January 14th, 2021 at 7 p.m. by remote technology as authorized by executive orders 7B and 7I to consider the application below. The information regarding how to participate in the public hearings will be provided on the meeting agenda that will be posted on the town's website at least 24 hours prior to the meeting. 1. Application number 20-10.4 PDD Master Plan for mixed-use and residential located at 61, 65 through 71, 67, and 73 Goodsell Point Road, Goodsell Point LLC, care of Sal Maritoli, applicant and owner. Item number 2, application number 20-12.2, special exception for grading, section 6.8, family home located at 8 Sawmill Road, John Petrosky, applicant, Virginia C. Borgia, owner. At said hearings, all persons will have the right to be heard. A copy of the application materials will be made available at least 24 hours ahead of the meeting at https://www.dropbox.com/home/planning %20 %26 %20 zoning under the folder for this particular meeting date. Written application should be via email to p-d@branford-ct.gov by noon of the day before the meeting for posting at the above Dropbox account associated with the town's website.
Okay, Anders Chair. Thank you, Marcy. We'll follow our normal public hearings. That is, we'll go first, have the opportunity presentation. We follow the applicant's presentation with a staff. There'll be a staff report with a summary that will summarize that. We'll then open it up for questions or comments from commission members. At that point, we'll open it up for public comment. And I'm going to ask Barry when I'm done to review the process by which you participate as a member of public at this Zoom meeting. I would ask again that you state your name and address for the record before you speak. Again, as part of the Zoom meeting, we're all supposed to say our name before we speak, because some people may be on the phone and may not be able to see who actually is speaking. After the public comments, we will turn it back over to the applicant to respond to any public comments. And we may or may not close the public hearing for larger proposals. Certainly not unusual for us to keep public hearings open for more than one session. With that, I'm going to ask Harry to review with us the process for participating in public well through the Zoom meeting. Harry?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Harry Smith, Town Planner. Once the commission reaches the agenda item on which you may want to comment, and the applicant made a presentation, staff's made comments, and the commissioners have asked questions and comments. The chairman has opened the hearing to the public. Then, if your computer has a microphone for two-way communication, you can use the raise hand feature in the participant window, which is found down in the lower bottom center of your Zoom window. So you click that, you should see a list of participants on the right side, go to your name, and click raise hand. If you don't wish to speak, but you want to type comment, you can do that in the chat feature, which is down the very middle, the bottom of the Zoom window. It's helpful to type in your full name if you want to speak, and you're required to use your name and state your name if you want to make public comment. But if you just want to listen, you do not need to type in your name or announce yourself in any way. If you're calling in by phone, then you will be muted. You should be muted at this point. If you want to raise your hand from the phone, you need to press *9. And again, you give your name where you speak.
Harry, can I interrupt for a second?
Sure.
I'm getting a lot of feedback and echo.
There is a lot of
feedback. I have a feeling it's coming from Paul Higgins' phone.
All right, let me take a look at Paul. It's possible if people that are on two different devices can create that. Let me check to see if I've got him unmuted on two things. On the phone. You're not calling on your computer, are you?
I'm on the computer so I can see everybody, but I have the phone so I can hear everybody.
All right.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Can you unmute the computer?
I can unmute. Yeah, hang on. I can mute me.
Okay.
Call from Darcy Ogden.
Okay.
Call from Darcy Ogden.
I don't know who's making that call, but the echo seems to be disappearing. Is that correct?
I think the echo has disappeared.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
That's good.
Thank you.
Okay, good. Thanks, Chuck Anders here. Thank you, John, for pointing that out, and problem solved. Watch out, you may be elevated to an IT person if you keep doing things. With that, we will turn to our agenda. Our first item of public hearing is Bright and Early Daycare, 312 East Main Street, for child daycare. And my understanding is that the applicant is also before wetlands for this application this evening. So the request is that we simply open and continue that. Is that correct, Harry?
Harry Smith, Town Planner. Yes, the hearing's already open though, so you're just simply continuing it to the next meeting, which I understand will be 28.
Okay. I will just ask if anyone is appearing tonight, if attending this evening at this great Zoom meeting to speak for this. You can speak if you like, but again, I would recommend if you're here for that, you recommend that you wait until we actually hear the presentation from the applicant to make comments. But that said, is anyone here to speak?
Right, let me look down the list and see if there's anybody who's raised hands. Do not see anyone. I'll check the chat. And I do not see anything on the chat, so I don't think anyone I can see looks like they want to speak on that.
Okay. With that, then, we will continue this public hearing to our meeting of what date, Harry?
January 28th.
Okay, we'll settle that to our Zoom meeting on January 28th. That brings us to item number 2, which is Goodsell Point LLC, applicant and owner 61, 65, 71, 67, and 73 Goodsell Point Road. It's a PDD master plan mixed use proposal for marina and residential. Is the applicant prepared to go forward?
They are, and I'm going to unmute them, make them a co-host in a second. I made Marjorie a co-host, and I'll also make Al Martoli a co-host. Marcy, you should be set. Unmute yourself.
Thank you. I am unmuted. Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Would you confirm that I'm audible, please?
Yes, Ms. Jansky, we can hear you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission. I am Attorney Marjorie Shansky, and I represent Goodsell Point LLC, which is indeed seeking master plan approval and PDD designation for the properties listed on Goodsell Point Road to create the Marina Village community. With me this evening are Sal Maritoli, who is a principal of the LLC, Todd Ritchie, professional engineer from SLR, formerly known as Milone and McBroom, Dave Sullivan, traffic engineer, also from SLR, formerly known as Milone and McBroom. And the application submission includes not only the standard engineering plan set, but a traffic report from Mr. Sullivan, and today additional traffic information in response to comments from the town engineer was also submitted. And the application also includes a tidal wetland delineation report dated November 23rd, 2020, prepared by Megan Raymond of SLR, formerly known as Milone and McBroom. So the subject property consists of 4.11 acres of land located in the R3 zoning district. And in the application package, I included a narrative that describes the intended uses of Marina Village, describes the public access component, the area and bulk standards, and a description of regulatory and plan of conservation and development consistency. All of that is going to be discussed in more detail with you, largely by Mr. Ritchie in terms of the plan. We have received a letter from John Goucher at DEEP. He has made a couple of observations that now we are cognizant of and that will be addressed in our detailed site plan and coastal site plan application in the event the PDD designation is permitted. And but he does include in his report that he finds the PDD to not be inconsistent with Connecticut Coastal Management Act policies. And we've also received John Guskowski's staff report with his planning comments. And everything that he mentions, first he goes through the section 5.4 approval criteria, and he also goes through the plan of conservation and consistency discussion that we had. And we're happy to address comments that he had, but generally find his report to be supportive of this endeavor. So with this, I'd like to pass the presentation over to Mr. Maritoli, followed by Mr. Ritchie and Mr. Sullivan.
Can I jump in 1 second? Harry Smith, Town Planner. All the folks you mentioned, Marcy, on your team I made them all co-hosts, so every one of you should be able to unmute yourselves and show your screen, which looks like someone's already done.
Thank you.
Chuck Anders, Chair. Before you begin, I think there are a couple commission members who are recusing themselves from this application that we should probably note that for the record. And my understanding is that John will not be participating in this application. John, is that correct?
John Luss speaking. Yes, that's correct, Chuck.
And also Joe Viuzzo will not also, I think he's lives close by and also will not be participating. Is that correct, Joe?
Joe might have muted himself, but I believe that is correct. I've received an email from Joe to that effect. Planning to sit at this out.
Okay.
And Harry Smith, Town Planner, I'll just mention that I believe in terms of who's up, in terms of the alternates, Massimo is next in line, and then Paul Higgins. I think Fred was the last one who participated in a vote.
Right. And Chuck Anderson, of course, all alternates can participate during the public hearing at this point. So.
Correct, yeah.
Right. Chuck Anderson, I'm sorry to have interrupted, Ms. Shansky. You can, and your team can proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Maritoli. Sal?
Okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. Okay. Thanks, Marjorie. And thank you, Commission members, for the opportunity to present Marina Village. I'm Sal Maritoli, the managing member of Goodsell Point LLC, located here in Branford. I'd like to give you a brief historical overview of the marina property and a look at what we hope to build. The slide that's up right now is Goodsell Point Marina in the foreground. In the background is Bruce and Johnson's Marina. And this is Goodsell Point in what I consider its heyday. About 15 years ago, you'll see all the slips were filled, and it was a good, thriving marina. If you go to the next slide, that's the marina when we purchased it just 1 year ago. And it's pretty obvious what happened. Due to an illness, the primary operator of the marina was unable to maintain the property. The docks were falling apart, pilings were rotted. The marina was in general disrepair. Next slide, please. The on-site buildings were in pretty rough shape, as you can see. Wind and weather and just lack of maintenance had done its job. Next slide, please. This is the marina 15 weeks later, back to life. Marina was full. So we purchased in January, and this picture was taken around July. Next slide, Todd. We built new docks. Brand new pilings were installed. Water and power installed on the docks. General upgrading of all the water-related facilities. Next slide, please. Massive cleanup onshore. The service building that you see, if you recall from the previous shot, it was just about falling down. That was fully restored. Small office in there and a little marine supply in there. And this is what we hope to do, is what we're considering the next phase of the project. This is Marina Village. So our hope, you can get a look at that. There are 3 existing homes on the property now that, again, are in pretty rough shape. We hope to remove those homes and build 12 additional homes, plus that larger building that you see in the middle of the parking lot. Next slide, please. The Sullivan Group did the architecture, and the idea is to, we asked Ray Sullivan to create what might feel like a very small maritime, marine-oriented street that you might find down in Cape May or in Nantucket. Water-oriented designs, fairly small footprints. Next slide, Todd. Just another look at what the elevations, would be. And it's a combination of 6 or 7 house styles and 3 or 4 different floor plans. Our hope is that people would be able to pick a certain house style that they're after and pick a floor plan that suits them. The The project itself that you can see on these four slides, beautifully landscaped. Everything will be planted, and we'll get into our detailed landscape plan when we're in front of you for our site plan. The larger building will house marina offices, restrooms, gathering area, and outdoor decks. Landscaping would be, there's 2 rows of houses. There's a real pretty curved walkway that runs through the middle of the 2 rows of houses. That'll be accented with gardens and copper gas lanterns to give that real little nautical village within a village feel. We believe that the project will have 4 important considerations for the town. Perhaps most important is that we're going to completely revive what you might consider a blighted site at this point. We're also going to bring city sewers the entire length of Goodsell Point Road. Right now, they end at the Branford Yacht Club. Our intent, and we've been before Water Pollution Control Authority, and the intent is to bring sewers down the entire length of Goodsell Point Road. We think that's a real plus for homeowners that are currently on septic systems. Our neighbor to the west is on a septic system with another marina. So it's going to give all of us the opportunity to tie into the town sewer system in a pretty delicate area and get off septic systems. The project, I think, will provide a nice economic stimulus during the construction phase. And when we're completed, add somewhere between $12 and $15 million to our grand list. And finally, when we get into our site plan, and I think Mr. Ritchie will be talking about, we're going to create some public access areas. We're going to create some passive recreation areas and create additional access to the Branford River and Long Island Sound. So with that, I will turn my part over to Todd Ritchie, our project engineer. Thank you.
Thank you, Sal. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Great. For the record, my name is Todd Ritchie. I'm a professional engineer with SLR, and just wanted to start off with this overall aerial Google Earth photo of this Goodsell Point Road area and vicinity of the proposed PDD site, just to give you an overview of what's in the sort of peninsula here next to the Branford River. You have, of course, the Goodsell Point Marina and the PDD site that we're proposing here. You have to the west, a Freedom Boat Club that extends across several properties. I think it's 3 in this area, with some residential units on those properties, as well as the marina, and a service building here. You have the Branford Yacht Club south area and clubhouse here. You have the North Yard here, and you have the state boat launch in this area. And you have, I think there's 4 single-family residences on the north side of Goodsell Point Road, and as Sal mentioned, there's 3 within the PDD area of those sites. Going to the next, so we submitted the proposed PDD zone, this outline here, this thick dashed line. It consists of 6 properties owned by Goodsell Point LLC. Of course, there's 2 properties associated with the marina, and then there's 3 single-family residential parcels, which is here, here, and here. And then there's 1 remnant parcel that's here. It's just kind of encapsulated in this use of this single-family parcel. The existing conditions, as you can see here, is an overview. This was when, I apologize. This is when the site was, as Sal mentioned, not in use and blighted. But we have tidal wetlands along the south and the east fringes of the site. And then we have the yellow line here is the coastal jurisdiction line. And we have a 100-year flood zone boundary in the red. The existing condition survey and mapping was prepared by Criscolo Engineering. The total area of the parcels, as Marjorie had mentioned, all 6 together is 4.11 acres. The tidal wetlands were field identified by Megan Raymond of our office. The existing structures include the 3 single-family homes, marina service building, platforms, fixed and floating docks, and traveling boat lift support structure. That's this down here. Ground covers currently consist of grass, pavement, gravel, trees scattered throughout the residential parcels. Existing utilities serving the site consist of overhead electrical wires and underground in the right of way, which are then under the site. Water and gas, sewage, and water and gas is public supply, and sewage, as Sal mentioned, is currently disposed of on site through individual septic systems on each of the lots. Does anybody have any questions so far? This here is the proposed site plan, or the master plan, as part of the PDD zone. It includes 155 slip marina with and amenities and service buildings, 155 parking spaces associated with the marina, along with 15 3-bedroom residential units with associated parking, a pool, and passive recreation area. Public access to the shoreline portion of the development is currently proposed at the eastern end of the parking lot, where there's a bike rack, there's a gazebo, this is the passive recreational like grass area, and there's some picnic tables here. The access to that is via a sidewalk down, and then this along here, and then across the parking lot. Units 8 through 15 here are located within the 100-year flood zone. The first floors are elevated above the flood elevation, and then the lower level will be used for garage and storage and recreational areas that are not habitable. Units 1 through 7 are located along Goodsell Point Road, and they have driveway accesses directly from Goodsell Point Road, and are out of the flood zone. There's a corridor, as Sal mentioned, in between the units that consists of grass, lawn, ornamental plantings, walkways, and it also incorporates portions in the rear that can be deck and patio rooms, just a little bit of a amenity off the back of each of the units for entertainment or just extra space. There's a 4-foot wide planted linear landscape divide between the marina and the shared residential driveway to the lower units, retained by something, a naturalistic coir log wall or something like that. It's only a couple feet high, and then there'll be some screening plantings along in a row. As far as utilities go, let me just scroll down. As Sal mentioned, and I had also stated that we currently have water, gas, and that sewer has been approved. The conceptual layout for the sewers that up here on this is a town parcel, that there would be a pump station, and that the main sewer line would run to that pump station with a force main back in the opposite direction to the gravity manhole at the end of Goodsell Point Road. It would serve the site. The site is some areas of this would try to accomplish that by gravity sewer, but some of the lower portions, such as the amenities building down here and the service building, would need probably individual grinder pump units to pump up to the gravity sewer. And all of these units would be served by, as I mentioned, public water, gas, and the underground electric lines that would be distributed throughout the site. At this point, I'm going to hand it off to Dave Sullivan to speak about traffic. Dave, can you hear us?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right, fantastic. Good evening. My name is Dave Sullivan. I'm with SLR. The first time I've had to say that. Formerly Mylona McBroom. I manage our traffic and transportation planning group. We did conduct a traffic study, and we also received some comments from John Hefferly, and have provided not only the traffic study, but a response to his comments. And I'll go through both of those jointly in this presentation. I'll try to keep it relatively quick and then respond to any questions you may have. So if you could move through. Thanks, Todd. The scope of our study in general in blue is our initial study, which is very much a traditional traffic study: review existing conditions, estimate future conditions, and then we establish what is going to change and determine the impact of that change. In this particular case, it's 12 additional homes. Everything else are existing uses. And then we make recommendations. In addition to that, in green, we responded to some comments from John Hefferly, as I mentioned, and I'll integrate my responses into this presentation as we go along and let you know what those were. Next slide, please. The first thing here is the traffic that's being generated. Up top first is the single-family homes. There's 15 single-family homes. While they're clustered, they are 3-bedrooms, so we looked at them as single-family homes. And as you can see, we'll be generating 12 morning peak hour trip and 16 afternoon peak hour trip. So not a tremendous amount of traffic, and this is based on the Institute of Transportation Engineers statistics. In green on the bottom of that table, one of the comments from your town engineer was that although the marina is there and it's an existing use, it wasn't very active, and rightfully so. As Sal showed you in some of those pictures, it was not active. So we've done a supplemental analysis where we added in projections of what the marina would generate. And in the green, you'll see here what the Institute of Transportation Engineers, again, would estimate for 155 slip marina during the morning peak hour and the afternoon peak hour. I'll get more into how that played out in the analysis as we go forward. Next slide, please. One of the things that I've been in front of you guys quite a bit lately, the COVID adjustments that we have been having to make with traffic counts we take. Obviously, traffic patterns are different as we go through this pandemic, and we have been making efforts to adjust to what pre or post COVID conditions would be. Sometimes we have an easier time with it, depending on the availability of other data. So one of the comments from your engineer was that in our report, we talk about doing counts, and then we talk about adjustments, but we didn't show them step by step. So I'm not going to go through all of these numbers, but I would like to walk through the steps of our adjustment. And this is all part of the follow-up letter that we have recently submitted. So we started out with existing traffic counts that we took last summer. And then we had information from a from the DOT continuous count station. So we looked at what that count station had for their Branford location at the day we took the counts and compared it to a normal day during 2019. So that was the first adjustment we made. We rounded it up and we increased the traffic at Standard Avenue, Goodsell Point by 10%. The next adjustment was for a traffic data point we had on Maple Avenue. We compared the Maple Avenue peak hour counts from that state counter to the manual counts we made again in June of last year. And we came up with an adjustment factor there. And for both morning and afternoon peak hour, we added an additional 140 vehicles to Maple Avenue, split equally eastbound and westbound. Next slide, please. So that when we made those adjustments, our existing counts became our adjusted 2020 count. And we reported on those adjusted 2020 counts without those interim steps in our report. So that's essentially what one of the comments was. So ultimately, we take those 2020 counts, we increase them for normal growth rates, and brought them up 2022 levels for our design year. And we also added in the traffic for the Mariners Landing project. That gave us the combined traffic volumes. Next slide, please. So this again is the combined volumes, which the impact was based on in our traffic report. In green in the middle there, you'll see what we did was add the the marina traffic from the dormant marina that I talked about in the earlier slide. We took that traffic and added that on to the build traffic volumes and came up with a new higher traffic build scenario for 2022. So next slide, please. So what does that all mean? Well, here's our analysis. The first two columns are what we reported on in our original traffic study. And essentially, we show that we're not impacting traffic volumes in either peak hour at either of the analysis intersections. And in the green column is the results after we added the additional traffic in, accounting for the previously vacant marina and added the marina traffic on. So again, we see that there's no change in the results by adding the marina on. So we'll get to the last slide here. Todd. Thank you. And so our conclusions and recommendations are essentially one, that the intersections will operate acceptably with generally good levels of service and there'll be no impact. And these results are with and without the additional marina traffic volume adjustments, and no level of service change is associated with the site generated traffic. And lastly, one more comment that was presented to us from Mr. Hefferly was that he would like us to put fog lines on Standard Avenue between Short Beach Road and Maple Avenue, and Sal has agreed to do that. So if you happen to answer any questions, then I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, the application meets the criteria of Section 5.4B of the regulations for district eligibility and appropriateness, and is eligible also for the findings that are required under Section 9.10 F6, subsections 1 through 4, master plan findings required. And Mr. Guskowski expands on that in his staff report. And with that, we're happy to answer any questions that you have. Thank you.
Okay, Chair. Thank you, Attorney Shansky. Maybe the way we'll proceed at this point is I'll ask Harry to summarize Mr. Guskowski's staff report. Then we'll open up for questions or comments from commission members and staff. So we'll start with that. Harry, do you want to go through the report for Mr. Guskowski?
Sure. Harry Smith, Town Planner. Odd, I don't know if you are in control of the screen, if you could release your... Thank you. I'll go through the staff report I have here. So everyone ought to be able to see staff report by our consulting planner, John Guskowski. He describes the project on the first page. And I'll highlight a few of the comments that have already been touched upon. Just to note in the beginning, he mentions what I've mentioned for every PDD application, just so the Commission is freshly aware that you have broad discretion to accept or deny a proposal of this type, and you should be primarily guided by finding of points of harmony with the plan of conservation and development, as opposed to the normal consideration for a site plan or special exception where the applicant needs to demonstrate compliance with the regs and is entitled to an approval. In this case, you're talking about a regulation amendment to create the PDD, which is basically kind of a legislative discretionary act on the Commission's part within certain parameters. So this was already described about how the sewage will be treated by the development of a pump station. The town engineer wanted me to point out that the staff report is not entirely correct here, because it seems to imply that the town installing the pump station, extending the sewers, which in fact is not the case. The applicant will be doing this and then turning it over to the town once those features are installed, inspected, and so forth. WPCA, the Water Pollution Control Authority, has approved this, as my understanding as well. And the next comment is about phasing of the project. I mean, this, I understand, is to be constructed in one phase at this point. That should be clarified, and we can also, provide I've done this on a couple of, should we proceed to an approval, a commission proceed to an approval, you have a condition that allows the development of a phasing plan. Do that if that's possibly going to be the case. The next comment, number 3, respect to the height, there's no information at this point in the file for us to evaluate the proposed building height, so that will need to be included and submitted. Just sort of jumping ahead here to the next comment, number 4, to a possible approval and looking at a provision of a financial guarantee to ensure completion of public or community amenities. Mr. Guskowski is looking for an estimate of the cost as a condition. I'm jumping ahead to 910. Mandatory referrals were made. As was mentioned, there was some comments from the town engineer. The fire marshal generally amenable to the proposal as is stated, and the police department had no comments. Did also receive email subsequent to the writing of the staff report from the East Shore Health District. And they said that with the potential availability of the public sewers, they had no concern. Next section just lists the 4 required findings and some commentary on each. And B here, there's nothing stated at this point about actual maintenance of the recreation facilities, open space, what amenities have been proposed yet. Could be. Let's see, streets and drives. We've heard traffic. Mr. Guskowski's comment was echoed by the town engineer. That has already been covered by Mr. Sullivan. So that information was just provided today to us and has not yet been forwarded to the town engineer. So I think, jumping ahead a little, I would recommend the commission continue the public hearing so we can receive back from the town engineer about that and have an ongoing dialogue if that's necessary. Proposing utility and existing and proposed utility services. Really no substantive comments here outside of those by the town engineer. A lot of those details will be picked up at site plan level of review also. Conformance with the Plan of Conservation Development. Mr. Koskowski generally found that the areas noted by the applicant, maintaining existing coastal access, supporting economic development. On those was certainly well taken. He was a little more skeptical about addressing housing choice and opportunities, which brings up question of affordable housing, which is brought up in the last several PDD applications. Note that at this point, I understand there's no proposal for any of these units to be labeled as affordable, and there's nothing in the documentation proposing any kind of fee in lieu. It's also my understanding. General design comments, I'll note that as was mentioned, the northern row of units. I'll move over to the plan for a second. Bear with me. Be able to see the plan. So the northern row of units, as described, have driveways exiting onto Goodsell Point Road. There is a section of the zoning regulations which limits the number of driveways, the length of frontage on a public road, and that number is exceeded by these number of driveways. So a modification would need to be proposed as part of this PDD to address that concern. Also, Mr. Koskowski mentioned the possibility that was in the actual preliminary design for the layout, which was to have a driveway, a central carded vehicular driveway between the two lines of units. Again, this has been modified, and I'm sure the applicant has their reasons for that, but it does create this situation on Goodsell Point Road. Mr. Koskowski also pointed out that it really creates a kind of unfriendly pedestrian environment down here. Because at this point, there are no sidewalks on Goodsell Point Road, and certainly none just here as part of this development. And these garages exit onto at grade drive here that my understanding is below flood elevation. So that concern, although all the living units are above and all the utilities, I understand, be supposed to be above that flood elevation level plus the also, while I'm here, this is probably briefly the public amenities proposed: a gazebo, public picnic tables, and a little bit of recreation area. Mr. Koskowski thinks that might be better located around this portion of the development, so that someone accessing the public amenities would not need to drive all the way through the marina parking. The views might be a little more ideal from this location. I think that might make sense as something for, I haven't got any feedback yet from the applicant, so wondering what they think about that. That's by Mr. Koskowski also. He goes on to talk about the presence of a portion of the property in the floodplain, which was already discussed. Two buildings would be within the floodplain with the habitable portion above, but of course, I don't think anybody would be living, of course, in these two, so evacuating anybody would not. This is back to the recommendation, already summarized. General, outside of those comments, the approach has been found to be largely consistent with the regulations of Plan of Conservation Development. I will mention that I did look quickly at the density that's being proposed, and that based on the square footage of lot area dedicated to residential use in the plans, which was 78,950 square feet, and the 15 units, that is much higher, about 3 times what would be allowed in the R3 zone, not even subtracting out for what it would take to subdivide this area and create lots, and they would involve creating a road and maximize it out, I would think. Well, maybe you could do 5. 5 would be the number you could get for 78,950. The lot area you would need for the 15 units would be well over 200,000 square feet. I'll just note that and stop there. And has any questions? Awesome.
Chuck Anders, Chair. Thank you, Harry. This time, let's open up for questions or comments from commission members and staff. Are there members of the commission that have questions or comments? I will ask a couple then, just to follow up. I mean, I'm just sort of big picture. We have a marina that is failing, that isn't working now. The proposal is to upgrade the marina. There's really 2 components, the residential and non-residential, and bring back the marina. And then the housing, you're going from, there are 3 units now, and the proposal is 15, so you're adding 12. So you're going from a marina with 3 with a marina with 12. And again, you're making upgrades, improvements, and so forth. But obviously, what Harry pointed out is that there is an increase in density, and it's the density that's more than would be authorized under the underlying zone. Is there some, what's the rationale for these number of units that you've proposed here? Is it necessary to support the marina, or what's the, what can you say about that?
I can say, Mr. Chairman, this is Attorney Marjorie Shansky. I can say that there's nothing about the regulation per se that dictates what the density is. The whole objective of planned development districts is their flexibility. And this density is predicated on creating a village cluster development, which has its own sort of containment and social element within it. It's located at the end of a street, so it's not as though it's in a disruptive place in the landscape. And while it is true that one could distinguish between the residential area and the marina area, in fact, the parcel is 178,000 square feet. The marina is to some extent a seasonal use. So the difference between 178,000 square feet and 200,000 square feet in terms of the absorbed density is not really as dramatic a departure as one would think, because there is a part of the year when it's even quieter on marina, at the marina than it would be. Well, it's as quiet as it would be as a defunct marina. But as a sort of correction, Mr. Chairman, it was functioning this summer. All of that work in upgrade and rehabilitation did occur, and so it is now a functioning marina.
Okay, and thank you. Now, I think there is something in our regulations that you shouldn't do PDDs just to get increased density. But you're right, there's no nothing in there that says, that puts a limit on any of the density. Yeah, just to sort of give context, if you had come in and said, the marina isn't working, we're going to throw it out, we just want to put 15 units on this whole parcel. We want to put a condo here. I would be inclined to say no. That's just more density, more residential density. You're in the zone. That people have the expectations that's what we're doing. And we've heard lots of complaints that we're doing too much density now with the recent project. that said, so it seems to me one of the appeals here is that you're saying, no, we're bringing a marina back to life. You know, and that's the water dependent use on that. So to me, that is a big component of this. That is a major, you know, makes this inviting. Just personally. So I'm looking at this as saying, well, you may need the residential to subsidize the marina component. I don't know if that's true. I'm not in the business, but that's kind of what, you know, may be going on. And I don't know, you know, if you can comment on that. And because my fear is that what if we approve something like this, and then, you know, whatever, a few years down the road, the marina says, oh, it doesn't work. You know, we're just going to abandon that, and we're having, you know, just residential density. So what can you say to allay my concern?
I can say a couple of things, one of which is not directly responsive to what you just said, but I'll forget it if I don't say it right now, which is that in addition to this being a water dependent use and knowing how strongly the commission and the town feel about supporting and increasing the town's relationship with the waterways, that there's this public access component in addition to the marina. So a non-seafaring individual who simply wants to spend time down at the water or take their lunch at a bench or sit in the gazebo or do whatever it is that they can do on the passive recreation area, that is also a component of it. So it has a sort of an outward-facing element as well. But with respect to the survival or viability of the marina, there's a waiting list to get in. So the prospects of its endurance and success are very strong. So I think that you're going to have a relationship, and we've also provided for the ability of the people who live at the village to have access to slips. So people who had a direct penchant or propensity for that kind of activity could really find a lovely way to live out their relationship with the water.
Oh, okay. So you have a waiting list now, and you may be creating some demand by virtue of the residential.
Correct.
Okay.
Can I?
Yes, Harry.
Harry Smith, Town Planner. I just wanted to point out the section I think you're referring to in the regs is in section 5.4B23, which I can read it if you want. It's fairly short. It says within the coastal management district, particularly in suburban residential areas currently zoned R3 and R4, the use of PDDs are not encouraged solely for the purpose of achieving higher densities of residential development, but rather to allow greater flexibility in planning and design free from the rigid constraints of uniform locational standards, densities consistent with the immediately adjacent neighborhood, capable of being supported by the available water supply and sewage disposal facilities. Proposed PDD should be guided by and be consistent with Branford's municipal. That's standard in the regs.
Okay.
To that point, Mr. Chairman, I beg your pardon. The correction that the town planner made to Mr. Guskowski's report relating to the installation of the sewer line is also one of those commitments that is supported by the density.
Correct. And I understood that Mr. Martin pointed that out, that you're extending the sewer, which is benefit not only you, but some of the adjacent properties that are
and
on
the water and the receiving water.
And water. Yes, no, but I think Harry properly pointed out there is a reference to the underlying density for PDDs and so forth, and this does exceed that. Which sort of brings me to another point, which is when you are exceeding the, sort of this, we're and maybe it's just me, but we've received a number of PDDs seeking density, some significant density in the last 6 months, and the issue of affordability, either as affordable units or a fee in lieu of. And in my mind, if that may not be justified if you're just seeking density consistent with what is there now. However, if you want to exceed the density, and Harry mentioned that if you break it down, the residential part, the part that you're devoting to residential, is about 3 times the underlying density. Then to me, in my mind, that's when we're into sort of density bonus area, which I think of as, that's affordability issue. That's where you come in and want to address issues of, either units being set aside as affordable or, we've done fee in lieu of as well. So that is just for your benefit. That is something that I'm thinking of when I thought of this as well. So you don't have to, that's more of a comment than a question, but that is just giving you the benefit of my thinking.
If it is the case, as Mr. Guskowski and Mr. Smith indicate that the hearing will be left open, we may be able to turn your comment into a conversation, but not tonight.
Okay, that's fair. And yes, I think the intent is to keep this open. So those are my comments at this time. Does any other commission member have any questions or comments before we open it up to the public?
Marcy raised her hand, but I think she should be able to unmute herself, but I will, now you're a co-host, Marcy, if you weren't.
Okay, thank you. I was having trouble unmuting.
Sorry about that.
How long has this marina existed and did it predate zoning? The reason I ask is because I know there's a number of streets in the area that are R1 zones, and I'd like to, when the zoning ordinance took effect historically, my understanding, maybe I'm not correct, but my understanding was they looked at existing uses on the site, and I'm wondering if that's why it was designated as an R3 as opposed to what's I consider a little bit more consistent in the Harbor Street area is, the smaller size lot because of the water, interest with cottages and so forth. So I'd be very interested in some of that history. And maybe you can't answer that tonight, but.
I know that it was owned for decades by the prior owner, and I don't have, that's a fascinating and possibly really helpful question. Mr. Maritoli, do you happen to know where that marina dates back to?
Oh, boy. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, Sal Maritoli, applicant. I'm going to show my age here, but I actually kept a boat at this marina 40 years ago. So it was open and fully functional at least 40 years ago. Beyond that, I couldn't say.
We'll do some research into that.
Yeah, Harry Smith, town planner. I believe it's the case that it's a pre-existing non-conforming use because zoning went in 56 in Branford. I believe that's the case. I'm not 100% sure. And Marcy, response to your other comment, I think about the zoning, that entire stretch of area is R3 solidly all the way up Maple Street, up and down.
I know of a couple of lots near the end, but I'm just trying to understand how the historical pattern was created and to try to create a context or a basis for the whole density question, because it seems there's not a good basis for what's a legitimate count and discussion about getting public access to the water, whether through private ownership or public access. I think we're going through a period now in Branford where we've been restoring the river, looking very closely at getting the water quality, and it's only natural that people want to be in and around the river, whether it's privately or publicly owned. So that's the basis. But I guess my other question is, have you increased the number of slips since you've been restoring the area, or are you just maintaining the number of slips that have historically been there?
It's the number of slips has not increased.
So when the project went into disrepair, it was really just that they weren't renting slips, and then you've now done the work that you needed to do to restore the same number of slips prior and historically were in place.
Mr. Maritoli may want to comment on that.
Yeah, that's correct, Marcy. Not every slip available to us is occupied at this point because we've built 3 new sets of docks, and there's more in the works being built right now off-site. And so the plan is just to get back to the point where it was in the earlier photographs that I showed you in its heyday. They had about 155 slips that were functioning. We're not there yet, but we're close. But,
Okay, is
but
the
not
150?
not adding slips.
Yeah, so the 155 is really the number I'm trying to consider relative to traffic increase versus the 12. So that's helpful. Thank you.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
That's all I have.
Okay, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Marcy. Just a couple of follow-up questions. Couple for Mr. Sullivan. Just on the traffic analysis, and you probably said this and I just wasn't paying attention. The traffic counts are based on summer traffic counts. Obviously, there's big differences in seasonal stuff. Is that correct?
Yes, the base counts were taken in mid-June, June 12th, I believe, on a Friday.
Right. Okay. Thank you. And then is the road there? I think at the end's pretty narrow. Is that right, or what's the width?
It varies. It does get narrower as you get toward the end. For the most part, it's in the vicinity of the driveway, the main driveway. It's generally 18 to 20 feet, but it does get narrower. There are some pinch points. There's a tree right before the driveway that pinches it a little bit. So I guess it's at the minimum where we would like it to be. We'd like to keep it at 18 feet. I think the vast majority of it is.
Okay, so do you think that the current width is wide enough for the use and the volume of traffic?
I do for a couple of reasons, and it does get even narrower when you get in front of where the driveways will be. When you go past the main driveway, there are some sections that get even narrower. But essentially, once you get past the other two yacht clubs, it's almost like a shared driveway where so there's not a lot of crossing traffic. There's a couple of homes back there, and there will be a few more homes. But the width of 18 feet is what we would consider for a very low volume road would be considered adequate. Now, one thing, and we did have this discussion because on this, I was talking with Todd, and we will be doing some work because of the utilities, so we'll be ripping up the road. So where there's opportunities without affecting trees and things like that, to eliminate some of the narrower sections, we'll certainly take those opportunities. But from my standpoint, when the question was posed to me originally, I think it's, if we can keep it at 18 feet or so up to that main driveway, I think we're fine.
Chuck Inch here. Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. Mr. Ritchie, do you agree with that? I mean,
well, I can say that I've measured it in, I think it was to the east where it narrows down, and it's actually more like 19. As Dave was mentioning, there may be a point where there's more of a choke where the tree he was mentioning is located. But it's more in the vicinity of 20 feet, 19 to 20 feet, and just kind of like on average in that area. So wanting to probably maintain minimum of 20. We do have an opportunity, as he mentioned, when you put in the new utilities to, the road's going to, there's going to be several trenches or combined trenches going up that road. So the whole road will need to be reconstructed. So if it's being reconstructed, it will be fully repaved. And so we'll be able to try to, target that minimum 20-foot width.
Chuck Inch here. Thank you. Just question, maybe for Mr. Martoni, who's going to operate the marina? Would you intent be to rent it out, or would you operate it yourself, or would you bring people in, or what?
Yeah, Sal Maritoli for Goodsell Point LLC. Yes, Mr. Chairman. Right now, as Marjorie mentioned, the marina was fairly well restored. We purchased in January of 2020, and we were open for business June 1st. Every available slip was taken, and as Marjorie mentioned, there was about 100 boat waiting list. And during that period, from January to June, we entered into an agreement with a very, very capable marina operator. They operate a smaller marina on the river currently, so they're very experienced. They're very well known, and I think you may hear tonight from some people they've done an amazing job in assisting us with the refurbishment and also running the marina for its first season, and we're in a long-term lease with them.
Hi, Chuck Anders, Chair. Thank you. One last question for me. My understanding is during the winter you have the parking lot serves as a boat storage area, at least for marinas that I've seen. My sole boat is a canoe, by the way. So I assume that
very smart.
That you guys are doing that as well. And I guess my question is, do you have enough space there to have storage? Because I'm assuming part of your income stream is part of the winter activities to make it work. You need to, people want to put their boat there and they want to you take care of the storage. And I guess the concern is, well, is the residential intruding on the area that you could use for storage and whatever? So can you address that?
Yeah, I can address that. It's almost the exact configuration it's always been. The residential is not going to encroach on the parking area. The residential is not going to encroach on the area that had historically been used for boat storage. It's a big lot, plenty of storage, no conflict.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Marconi. Are there other questions or comments from commission members before we open up the public?
Chuck, so
Fred.
Okay. I think Sal could probably answer this question. Is there a life expectancy of a marina? I know that, for example, Branford Yacht Club is dredging. I know that's a huge job, expensive job as well. So I'm just curious. You've got these two entities, the residential and the slips for the boats, and I'm just wondering whether is there, unlike a house, that you can. I think it's a lot more tricky having a marina. I'm just curious, is there some kind of life expectancy where maybe it's 10 years you got to dredge, or 5 years you have to dredge, or 20 years, or when you have to change pilings? I know you see you change pilings. I don't know, why that's done or how it's done, but is there some way to gauge that when a marina goes in or is operating, that there's a certain length of time they can operate before huge amounts of money have to be put in? And my concern was, maybe that's what happened with this marina. Huge amounts of money had to be put in, and the person wasn't able to do it due to health or age, whatever. But and then the marina ends up going, kind of south a little bit. So I'm just curious if there is such a thing as a life expectancy for a marina.
Sure. Good question, Russo. Sure. Like anything, like the roof on a building or the siding on a building or any component, the marina, the docks, the floats all have a life expectancy. Dredging is a big question, and that depends marina to marina on the silting conditions in the particular body of water it's located in. Perfect example is the Guilford Yacht Club. The Guilford Yacht Club happens to have a very high level of silt moving through that, especially their channel heading out to Long Island Sound. So they're in there dredging every 2 or 3 years. Our marina, most of the marinas on the Branford River have a much longer period of time between dredging. And it's part of the marina business, just like any other business, where you plan ahead for that. And every so many years, you've got to expect to expend a certain amount of money to do your dredging. We're actually pretty fortunate on the Branford River. We don't silt up nearly as much as many places. So it's part of the operation. It's part of the ongoing budgeting for the project. Every year, money should be set aside going into that dredging kitty. pilings last a long time. We replaced all the pilings where our new docks went in. We replaced A, B, and C docks, the main body, or the what you might refer to as the marina basin. Those are all replaced. And my guess is the life of that will be, as much as 25, maybe 30 years on those pilings.
Thank you.
Chuck Anders, Chair. Are there other questions or comments from commission members before we open up to the public?
Chuck, one observation, Joe Chadwick speaking. In general, I don't find anything really, negative to say about this project. I mean, in exchange for the density, they're providing a certain amount of public improvements. Wouldn't happen otherwise. I'm speaking in the now, the concept of, living next to a marina and all that stuff could be pretty jazzy. But if I can bring up my issue from the previous deliberation, there's going to be a bunch of single-family homeowners on Isthmus Peninsula be probably using their garages to launch their boats. And this would be a perfect opportunity to start this really serious discussion on decommissioning plans for these kinds of properties. And that's I'm not sure how we get the ball rolling on that, but at some point there will be a lot of homeowners for relief because, well, they bought this, these are not going to be cheap dwellings by any stretch of the imagination. And, 40, 50 years, the water will rise and they'll be looking for some kind of relief. And there should be some knowledge bought into this thing that, you know what you're getting into and you know what the ultimate, situation. But that's my comment.
Dr. Anders, Chair. Thank you, Joe. Any other questions or comments before we open up to the public? If not, then Harry, we're going to open up the public. Harry, do you want to review again what the process is for the public comment?
Sure. Harry Smith, Town Planner. I just reiterate that if anyone wants to make a comment on the application, if you go to the participants the icon on the bottom mid portion of your screen, if you're a Zoom window, click on that. You should get a pop-up if you don't already have it on the right side that will list names who are participating in the meeting. And to the right of that is as you click on yourself, sort of like hover over yourself, a blue little square will come up and it says raise hand. So actually, if you do let's go down to some one. And I usually don't do this. I want to make sure I'm doing it right. So, so you should be able to hover over and raise your hand. I can't do it myself because host the meeting, but I believe that's where you raise your hand. If you're calling in by phone, then you need to press *9 to raise your hand. And again, if you're going to speak, you need to either have your name indicated on your Zoom box, or you need to state your name when you're speaking. So with that, there is a phone caller, numbers ending in 592, who has raised their hand, and I will ask them to unmute. Ready to go? Well, I don't know who that person is, but I've at this point asked you to unmute, so you should be able to unmute yourself and make a comment. I don't know if that person's still actively on the call. Someone else is asked to make a comment. George DePoto, so I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
How you doing? I'm George DePoto. I'm located at 60 Goodsell Point Road. I'm diagonally across the street from the property that we're talking about tonight. I had two quick things I wanted to touch base on. The first one was, all the reconstruction of the street. There was no talk of storm drain sewers, and basically where the sewers stopped, the hookups for the sewage, also the stormwater drains also stopped at the same point. And I don't know if they ran out of pipe that day and just were going to come back on Monday and never did, but it's strange how, another 1,000 feet and you finish the street. So I was wondering if that was in the plan or not.
This is Todd Ritchie in response to that comment. Currently, we don't have plans to address storm drainage in the street because it is the town road, but it's certainly something we can discuss with the town as we move forward. Our design work and discussions with them about the design.
Okay, because like I said, it's basically, I know that the law now is we're not allowed to shed water on anybody else's property or onto the street. And then at this point, my property and then the adjacent property, especially the Johnson property, which is the next one going after me towards your property. He's the lowest, he takes the most, and he actually gets killed with water. So we're collecting the runoff from the street and actually from one parking lot across the street. It literally, it doesn't even stay on their side of the street. It actually crosses the street and then runs down by my drive. I have a circular driveway. It runs by my two driveways. I collect it. And then ultimately the Johnson property gets killed with it. But as a whole, everybody is collecting the streets runoff. And I just, it now is an awesome time to just, fix that problem too. It's not necessarily Mr. Martoli's problem. Like you said, it's a town problem, but if we can kill two birds with one stone, I think that's, the point I'm trying to make. Not
Sure.
shove the project down, your throat. if
Sure.
we can address it while we got the street opened up.
Okay.
And then I had one more question before I unmute or mute again.
Okay, understand, Mr. DePoto. Yes, you can continue.
All right. The other one is, to be honest with you, I love the project exactly the way it's presented tonight. I had absolutely no reservations until Harry Smith had mentioned that there's a possibility that you might move that public area from where it's proposed right now over more towards where the public area is currently. It's I don't want to come off as a complainer. I know that you guys are in a transition of making everything better, but there hasn't really been any law and order in the short time that the new marina has been operating, and there's been like fireworks are. I can't believe that there's even fireworks allowed in a marina, but they're allowed on a regular basis. I'm not even talking about the 4th of July. And there's no marina that I've ever saw in my life that ever allows it for any condition. And if it's going to continue, it is. I mean, again, I'm not going to fight it, but it is, one of the things between that and the music's been excessively loud, excessively late. And even when the boats were pulled and the season was officially ended, the marina renters would still congregate down there just to kind of like, never ending summer more or less. And now it's finally cold enough where they're finally not, it's like go home already. But again, I haven't called anybody. I'm not that kind of person. It's an opportunity to bring it to attention tonight. And that's why I'd like to see it where it is, the farthest away from my property. Of course, that's my personal concern, but it's also already located next to the pool area. So, I mean, if the pool area is a public area and a lounging leisure area, leave that other public, with a gazebo area just where it is. And then furthermore, like I said, it really shouldn't be allowed. The fireworks are just ridiculous. And especially it's probably within 30 feet of a 10,000 gallon fuel tank with vents on the top. I mean, I can't believe that even the fire marshal wouldn't say something. But I don't know if anybody's complained. This is the first I'm saying of it just because I have an opportunity. If nothing's done about it, nothing's done about it. But I just think I should bring it to your attention tonight. And that's why I'd love to see it just the way it is. I love the project.
Chuck Andrews here. Thank you, Mr. DePoto.
Yeah. Do you mind if I, Mr. Chairman, can I respond to Mr. DePoto? Sure. Yeah, Mr. DePoto, Sal Maritoli here. First of all, I take responsibility for that. Frankly, I was unaware that there were fireworks going off, but it's my responsibility, and I thank you for bringing it to our attention. I can assure you I will have a conversation with our management and the tenant who's down there, and we'll get that. We'll avoid that in the future. And I apologize for that, and we'll address it.
All right, awesome. I really appreciate the concern and the response to that.
Thank you, Mr. DePoto. Mr. Marteau. Harry, I see a few raised hands. Who you want to recognize?
I think Mr. Ingraham is next. Ray Ingraham. I'm going to ask him to unmute.
Ray Ingraham, 34 Indian Neck Avenue. I'd like to thank Sal and his crew again for what looks like it will be an outstanding project for the town and the use of that property. It's beautiful. It fits. It looks like it fits the neighborhood. Houses that we have in Pawson and Pine Orchard. It really looks like all of our neighborhood. I'll leave all the technical stuff to you guys when I do speak at these. I'm not the streets and that, but on the looks of it and what I've seen in the marina over the last summer, and from people that have gone out there and using it, it's a really good project. And you can, Mr. DePoto, you can call me too if I'm your representative one of the representatives in the district if you run into any problems with especially the fireworks and stuff.
Yeah, no, I think we handled it tonight. Thank you, though. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Chuck Andrews here. Thank you, Mr. Ingraham. Harry, who's next?
Tony Cavallero from the Branford Yacht Club.
Yeah, good evening. I have some comments and I have a couple questions also. I've been with Branford Yacht Club for about 20 years now, and I watch the traffic pretty regularly, and I had some concerns when I read the original report because it does seem like it downplays the traffic on that road quite a bit. And there are some pinch points, one which is just west of our gate. And, we have people coming around that corner. There's a lot of pedestrian traffic on Goodsell Point Road. And you also have a lot of boats that are exiting the state ramp. And as they're coming out of that ramp, there's usually traffic flying down, Goodsell Point Road that could become an issue. Visibility is poor over there coming, when you're coming around that curve. And that's something to be, considered in the traffic related issues there. I was wondering if there's going to be much fill brought into the property. It's one of those things that, I've seen the marina for many years, and I've noticed a lot of the flooding that's occurred over the years, and I'm just wondering what your expectations are as far as for that property flooding, or if you're planning on raising the elevations at all.
Is that it, Mr. Cavallaro? What maybe we'll do is we'll collect all the questions, allow the applicant to address them at once.
Yeah. Also, we know that as far as from the utility standpoint, the electrical is kind of weak in that area. We're kind of at the end of a run, and as Branford Yacht Club's boaters find out, during the peak of the season, we'll see our voltage levels drop down to around 100 volts. And, it becomes a problem for boats, and it causes issues with the equipment on board. The other concern obviously is we have a lot of, we use a lot of water flow there, and, adding another 155 boats down the end of the street is going to be an additional drain on that water. And I know the fire marshal is looking for 1,165 gallons per minute of volume. I'm just wondering if there's been considerations to that. The water quality has been improving in the river. And even though the water quality is improving, somehow the dredge material that, at our marina has continued to degrade. Every 10 years, we actually have to dredge our marina. That's our dredge schedule. And each time we have to submit these, the soils and the dredge material for evaluation, and they come up contaminated every year. So, there is concern again, going back to the flooding of that property, if there's anything, that is coming out of that. So, and the last thing is also a question, which is, I know that the marina has what they call a perimeter permit for the marina configuration. And I was just wondering if the plans are to reconfigure the marina or leave it as is going forward. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Cavallaro. I assume the applicants need some notes on those. Harry, who's next?
Someone identified as Patty's iPad. So I will ask you to unmute. State your full name when you talk. That would be great.
Hi, yes, Patty Kaiser, live at 29 Standard Avenue, right down the street. I heard a lot of talk. Sounds like a really great project. I grew up in the neighborhood. I did see the marina at its heyday. And living on Standard, I do think the traffic will increase, with 155 slips that were not manned for quite some time. It's going to increase. And I heard some talk about fog lines. If you could explain that a little bit more, please.
Is that a short answer? Or is that something you want to, Ms. Chancey, you want to address later, or how do you want to address it?
Mr. Sullivan can answer that question.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a short answer. The town calls them fog lines. They're also known as edge lines. What they are is the white stripe on the outside of the lanes. So you have a yellow stripe in the middle of the road, and the white line on the edge of the road helps guide you and has a traffic calming feature as well. But that's what they call fog line.
Okay, thank you. And that's the plan to add them on Standard?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Harry, are there others who wish to speak?
Harry Smith, Town Planner. I'm just scrolling up and down the list. I still have a raised hand from the person online with the phone number ending in 592. So again, I'll ask them to unmute. Need to identify yourself for the record if you would.
Harry, is it 1592?
More like 592. Is that you, Joe?
Might be, yeah, because I was muted and I couldn't get myself unmuted till now.
Okay. Let me rename you, so that must be you. Great, thank you.
All right.
Okay. Chuck Anders, Chair. Are there others that wish to comment?
I am not seeing anyone at this point, Mr. Chairman. What, Perry Maresca? I'll ask him to unmute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Perry Maresca, Chairman of Economic Development. We have a common phrase at the Economic Development Commission, and that is quality of life. What brings people here, what brings businesses here, what keeps people here, and what keeps businesses here. Low taxes and the quality of life that Branford has. This PDD master plan works to both those desires. Additional taxable property can lead to a lower mill rate, which benefits all residences and businesses. I see no downside. There's only 12 homes. They're full residents. They're not condos or apartments. There's a sewer line that's being brought all the way down the road for the project, and existing properties can access it. There's relatively no increased traffic to what historically has been there years ago. It'll add millions of dollars to the town's grand list. It'll improve a deteriorated property. It'll improve public access to the river. Improve aesthetics, viewing from up, down, and across the river for boaters traveling the river as well. As most well-designed, thought-out developments, this will likely increase property values to many of the residential properties in the area. With sound growth through well-designed projects such as this by successful developers dedicated to the town of Branford for this mutual goal of quality of life, this project is a winner from all views. Thank you.
Chuck Anders, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Maresca. Harry, is there any other who would like to speak?
Harry Smith, Town Planner. I am not seeing anyone else. Let me check the chat just to be sure. Nothing on chat either. I think that is it, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Chuck Anders, Chair. I think the intent is we'll turn it over to the applicant again, but is Harry, the intent is to continue this. Is the suggested date also the 28th?
Mr. Chairman, yes.
Okay. Turning back to the applicant, Attorney Shansky, or your team, did you want to respond to any of the comments or a series? I mean, I know Mr. Cavallero had to raise a series of questions. I don't know if you want to address those now or at the continued hearing, or what you'd like to do, or if there's other comments you'd like to make.
Mr. Chairman, perhaps Mr. Ritchie can respond to the question about Phil.
Sure. As far as fill goes, yes, there will be fill brought in to the site that's necessary for the grading in the residential portion of the project, mainly partially elevating the shared residential driveway that will have stormwater treatment units underneath, infiltrator chambers, and mainly between the two rows of buildings to complete the grading in between the buildings and around the buildings to try to minimize the need for retaining walls and provide gentle slopes and stabilize and planted slopes where possible. And that will also tie into the pool area where the pool will be slightly elevated from where the elevations are now. So it's yes, the answer is yes. We don't have a quantity on that yet, of course, but that will be determined through the final site design process.
With that, Mr. Chairman, I think that we have provided the commission with a lot of information. We in turn have learned some things that we can reflect on and perhaps reflect in the application, and perhaps we can continue this conversation on the 28th.
Chuck Anders, Chair. Thank you, Attorney Shansky. Any further comments from commission members or staff before we continue this matter as a public hearing to the 28th? Gary.
Harry Smith, Town Planner. Mr. Ritchie, I'm just wondering about the fill. Is that going to be, would that contain any dredge spoils? I mean, again, I am not totally conversant in what the rules and regulations are with respect to applying dredge spoils upland, if this is in fact considered upland area. And the corollary to that is the area going to need to be dredged now?
I can speak to the soil itself, the dredge spoils. We did discuss that, and as the gentleman stated from the Branford Yacht Club, similar characteristics of the dredge material, that it's considered contaminated and it needs to be disposed of as cap material on a landfill type area, so it will not be used on site. Sal, I don't know if you want to provide any more input on what's going on or will be going on with potentially with dredging.
Yeah, sure. Sal Maritoli for Goodsell Point LLC. Yes, we're updating our permits as we speak. We were hoping to actually do a little bit of maintenance dredging this season. It may not be possible, but all of that is in the works. As I mentioned earlier, in response to Commissioner Russo's question, it's part of the ongoing operation of most marinas is that the planning has to be in place for dredging, and depending on silting conditions, how frequently that needs to happen. We're in line. We were hoping to do it this year. We will most likely get to it next dredging season.
Thank you.
Chuck Anders, Chair. Any further questions from commission members or staff? Not then, we'll continue this matter as a public hearing to our Zoom meeting on January 28th.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Chairman. Thank you.
With that, we'll move on to our next agenda item, which is item number 3. This item, Don Petrovsky, Virginia Borgia, 8 Sawmill Road. This is a special exception for grading. My understanding is that we are not going to open, although we scheduled this matter as a public hearing, that we're not going to open it at this time because I understand there's some additional notices and other things need to be done. So we will take, our intent is to reschedule this for our January 28th meeting. Harry, did I get that correct?
Harry Smith, Town Planner. Yes, there is a associated wetlands application, but apparently that is only to extend the life of a currently active permit, and that's going to be cleared up. I think they're going to be withdrawing that application now.
Well,
Redoing the notices to establish the date they were.
So thank you. So we will not, we're not even considering this matter as a public hearing at this point. So we'll reschedule this. So that brings us, that concludes our scheduled public hearings for this evening. And going down our agenda, we have 2 sets of minutes to review. The first is for the November 19th meeting. And those were sent out in our packet. And I don't know if we've had it. Everyone's had a chance to review those. And if appropriate, does someone want to make a motion to approve the minutes for the November 19th meeting?
Chadwick moves to approve.
Okay, Joe Chadwick moves to approve the minutes of the November 19th meeting. Is there a second?
John Lusk moves to a second.
Okay, John seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor? John, are you in favor?
John Lust in favor.
Joe Vayuzo? Joe is muted, I think.
I just asked him to unmute, and I think because he's on the phone, I can't make him a co-host.
Yeah.
Muted out. Joe agrees.
Okay. Joe Chadwick?
Joe Chadwick agrees.
Marcy?
Marcy agrees.
And I also agree. So those minutes are approved. The next one are the minutes for the Thursday, December 10th meeting. Someone want to make a motion on those?
John Lust, Commissioner. I'll make that motion.
Okay, John makes a motion to approve the December 10th meeting minutes. Is there a second?
Chadwick seconds.
Joe Chadwick second. Any further discussion? All in favor? John, are you in favor?
John Lust in favor.
Joe Vayuzo? Got to unmute again, Joe? Joe's still muted.
Yes, there we go.
Okay, I'm unmuted. I agree.
Okay. Joe Chadwick?
Chadwick in the affirmative.
Marcy? Marcy? I didn't hear you, Marcy. I think you're muted and unmuted there. Can you?
Marcy in the affirmative.
Yes, thank you, Marcy. And Chair also votes to approve the minutes. So that brings us then to correspondence. Any correspondence, Jerry?
Harry Smith, Town Planner? No.
Okay. Turning that, now we're going to old business. The first three items of our old business are the Mariners Landing resolution. Remember, there is a PDD modification master plan amendment, a 3-lot subdivision, and the site plan, coastal site plan. Harry, I know you've sent out 2 of the 3 draft resolutions. I understand that you still want to review them further, but would you care to review parts of, highlights with us, or parts where you need clarification from the commission to continue?
Sure, Harry Smith, Town Planner. I have been hoping to get these out to you a little earlier, but unfortunately that was not the case due to a variety of issues. You're down a staff member, as you know, and we had an unexpected absence in the department as well, and I had some personal issues. So at this point, we have them. I have not had the time to go over them in terms of checking all the details as much as I wanted to. So, and there are a couple of questions I'd like to get some feedback about from the commission as a whole. I will.
Excuse me, Chuck Anders, Chair. Harry, can you remind who would be voting on this? I know we're not going to vote tonight, but just for deliberation purposes.
Okay. I believe we are talking about.
I think John has
recused himself, so I believe Fred is the person replacing John, is my recollection.
Okay, great. So Fred, you participate in this, in any discussions on the motion, along with the other regular.
I'd also like to mention that before the meeting, we were offered a time extension through January 28th by Attorney Shansky, so very grateful for that. So would not need to rush this vote at the meeting next Thursday that we had set up, because the deadline for decision on the application otherwise would be the 23rd of January without time extension. So that is very helpful. And I will, at this point, share my screen and just run through the resolution. I'm going to start with the one for the PDD modification of master plan. Again, in format, pretty similar to the last one we looked at for the Days In PDD. Standard stuff here in terms of description of the project, when it was received, what it consists of, square footage, number of residential dwelling units. I believe this one should disappear. This is the master plan one. Not a modification. Well, not a I guess that's fine. There's the public hearing dates. All the required deferrals were made to the 4 fees listed there. We did receive comments from the fire department, and they, in view of additional information submitted, particularly a version of the general plan with reinforced lawn areas at various corners of the building, I believe A and C, pretty close to the public access path, which also doubles fire access. That Fire Chief Mahoney said he had no further issues with the proposal. Referral to DEP, comments from DEP, the 3 recommended changes to the proposal that I left in last email from Mr. Goucher, the DEP. Referral was made to the town center board. Recommendations. Various additional plans and revised plans were submitted. I will point out here in terms of the affordable housing offer, this is not exactly correct. It needs a little bit of additional wording. The $10,000 is for each of the 7.7 units, reflect 10% of the 77 additional units. So the math here, if you did it, certainly does not come out to 77,000. It would come out to 107. So that was certainly not the offer. Whichever way you did the math, 1,000 for each of the units, or look at 10% of the project as a potential affordable housing little consideration and how much for each unit. Either way you look at it, but the offer is 77,000. You can hear about what the purpose of that would be, and again, I mentioned that another PDD, just for the record, had offered $20,000 per proposed dwelling unit per proposed 10% of the total dwelling unit. Let's see, Attorney Shansky at one point stated that all three records for all three applications should be considered as one combined record and cross-referenced. This section right here discusses the traffic calming proposal for Rogers Street and Kirkham Street, which we're aware of. And we're talking about an easement for the eventual location of the Shoreline Greenway Trail, which would be a little widening of the sidewalk. The application again was amended to reflect more specifically all the public access walkways and areas and parking and signage proposed on a overall wayfinding and public access. We, me and myself, discussed the existing uses, that some of them were sort of legacy uses that were no longer really valid to the PDD, and those were revised. We had a statement from the DEP on the project. I believe currently working for the current landowner, was responsible for the environmental cleanup. A statement that the commission has deliberated on all of the above. Application, stating that you've given all the additional factors you need to do that to. Looking at required, the statement consistency with comprehensive plan, which is basically the zoning regulations and sections of regulations. And here is a choice. I've provided here one would be a statement that with the inclusion of the affordable housing offer as presented, the $77,000, the amended application and the increase in residential density is found to be consistent with the POCD. I've also provided an alternate statement here that should the commission choose to consider an amount different than the $77,000 offered. So again, I would need to change the wording here. I wanted to go that route. So that is a decision point for the commission, in my mind, and certainly before conclude with this item, if you could give me some guidance, that would be great. But I'll keep on going unless you want to stop and debate that now. Maybe.
Let's just stop now and talk so we can decide as we go through.
Great.
Okay, so it looks like, so the question is, this is their offer. I think it was 10,000 per unit based on the excess, and it comes out to 77,000. And the question is, do we want to have a different number? I'm okay with 77. We've had the discussions. The sort of it's difficult. The rationale is that this is a higher density, sort of the same rationale. If that's sort of the complaint. It's based on the 77 over and above what was originally approved. And the whole rationale for affordable law, in my mind, is that if you want to add additional density, you should have some affordable component. And this is a formula based on that has some reckoning. And there was, and I understand there was someone else that granted 20. And the proposal is, well, should we get more? I would love more. And who knows if it works. The sort of trade-off here was that there was various public amenities, frankly, that were offered, as part of this, both on-site and off-site. The on-site, there's just fairly extensive public access connecting this in a way that's pretty interesting, as well as some off-site traffic stuff that was addressing issues not just from this, but from other people. So, it's rough proportionality, guys. I don't think there's any mathematical formula. This is what they, I frankly pressed them. This is what they came up with, and I'm okay with it. Any other thoughts?
Joe Chadwick speaking. I'm just more disturbed with the phraseology that we're selling density.
Well,
in point of fact, that's what we're doing. I'm not going to argue that that's not what's happening. It's just it just bothers me that it reads like we're selling density.
Well, and Joe, I mean, there's rationales. This is atypical in the Connecticut general statutes and elsewhere, that linking affordability with increased density. Frankly, our whole affordable housing regulations now of 20 per acre, the incentive housing zone, the whole idea for that is that we're giving you a boost in density in exchange for 20% of the units. So that's the argument. So it's not something we just made up. It's something I think enshrined in planning literature. It's in various sections of the statute, and it's in our regulation. So the connection is there. And the argument is, well, you can point to our regulations. This is higher than what we allow in incentive housing. Again, this is mixed use because they have. This isn't a strict residential. There is. Most of it's residential, but there is a non-residential component which increases the goals of public access, and by sort of weighing all that in. So.
Right. Everything you're saying isn't showing up in the text. I think there's going to be a better way to say it.
The way it reads. Oh, got it.
Yeah, it really. I worry about precedent because. Unfortunately, I spend a lot of time arguing with contractors who think they're lawyers and lawyers who think they're Daniel Webster. And something that ends up being committed to writing that is the opportunity for ambiguity is going to be stomped on by somebody. And we just don't need to open ourselves up to. Really, we're the density is mitigated somehow by to compensate with affordable housing. I mean, I'm not sure exactly how to say it off the top of my head, but I think we should step back a second just to rephrase that.
Yeah, I think so. I would go with alternative one, not the alternative. And yes. What it would help to perhaps refer to those letters again. I know that in those letters, Attorney Shansky did highlight some of those public amenity things, and that was sort of the rationale. And I think acknowledging also the need for affordable housing in those letters too. But frankly, I forget what they said. So there are sort of references in there. And maybe you're right. Maybe we could phrase it better.
One is definitely the target. I'm sorry.
Okay, Marcy.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like an accountant tonight because I keep going back to what's the basis, and the way the state's affordable housing law has evolved and how it doesn't count our housing stock that just because it's not deed restricted isn't, I keep going back to that. So, to me, it kind of mutes the whole, why are we requiring fee in lieu? I mean, I know there's, like you said, the guidelines for, expansion, but I just, I'm just a little bit more pragmatic and, to try to put a number on that, now there's a certain precedence as far as like, have we been consistent with that number relative to other applications that have been approved, specifically the one I'm thinking of near exit 55, which I think was, as I recall, much lower than that with far fewer, things, amenities being provided to the public. So,
well,
I mean, I don't know.
just the opposite.
Was
but anyway,
calculated? I just feel like, each project is its own unique thing. And, I mean, if they're generously going to offer to give us some extra money, that's great, but this whole fee in lieu, I agree with Joe. I don't like the language of it. I really just don't like the whole notion of it. I think there's better ways to address finding more deed restricted affordable units in town, which I think would be great to have. I'm getting a little frustrated that every project is bringing this question up and there's, no real good method for addressing it. So that's just my 2 cents.
Sure. Yeah, and you're right. There is no mathematical formula. It's frustrating. There's different pressures. I agree with all that. That said, for a couple of things, for X55, they have 8 deed restricted units. These guys are doing a fee because they don't want to do that. The value of what they're giving is less than that is offered at X55.
Right,
Number
but
two,
what's the total number of units at exit 55?
What was the total number of units? I don't know, 130 or something?
It's approximately the same. I think it's about, ballpark, I can't remember off the top of my head, 140 something.
Right.
So they provided 8 units, and this is being calculated based on 10% of the total. I mean, it's apples and oranges.
I agree. We didn't come up. There was one attempt in the memo, and you looked at how much the cost of construction costs for a unit or whatever, and the amount would have been astronomical. Okay, so that is, this is something, and I'm, but I just, to the other comments, you're right. This is not going to count towards the 830G calculation, but there's different. That's not the only way affordable is measured. The reason that you have affordable isn't simply to get 830G off your backs, although frankly that is a good incentive. But there's also, apart from 830G, if that wouldn't even exist in the statute, there's other obligations in the statutes that the town needs to do something for affordable housing. As a matter of fact, that's a new obligation that we have to come up with a plan to address affordable housing. Forget if 830, which we've done. I mean, we have incentive housing, we have other stuff. It is something, particularly for higher density projects, that I think we're sort of obligated to consider. So in any event, this is, what do you do? I agree. We're kind of making it up as we go along. There's there's some proportionality. There's some attempt to see what works, to make it as win-win as possible of what they can do. They can make a contribution, and God bless them for that. So I think they can take credit. And we can use it. The proposal is, if someone needs affordable housing, we get to approve it, in the fund. So I think the fee in lieu of work, this is sort of what we come up with, and I'm okay with it. So that's what that is. So, but maybe we can rephrase, the good points. Maybe we can beef up, change the language a bit.
Chuck, Fred Russo.
Fred.
Let me just put my 2 cents worth. It's really a conundrum, of this affordable housing and in lieu of in payments. I would feel so much more comfortable. We're going to leave it that way. It's fine. So much more comfortable if I knew where that money was going to go. If there was some designated fund, there was going to be some kind of, public expenditure toward affordable housing. But the way I see it, it's like, okay, here's your trade-off. If you don't want to put in public affordable housing, you got to pay some kind of a vig. And and I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not saying it's illegal or anything. All I'm saying is that I would feel so much more comfortable. I said, when an applicant comes in and they're going to pay $77,000, that's okay. Now, how are we going to apply that toward affordable housing? And I don't think we've gotten there yet. I don't know how we get there. That's where you're the chairman. So I would ask you, and you have to answer me right now, but this is something we have to think about. What is going to be the use of these funds? Because there'll be other projects, I'm sure, that will require this. And I think when you're on the water, you might have to make some exceptions and not put in affordable housing. And I think that's something that we in some ways give into, which is fine. But I'm just concerned that once the applicant makes that expenditure, what does he get for his money, or she gets for her money? And what do we do with this money once we have it in our? Where does it go?
Fred, Chuck Anders here. Fred, those are great questions, by the way, and that is, frankly, you're right, because we don't really have a precedent for this. We're kind of making it up, but that's where what I recommend, I think it's somewhere in this resolution, is going to go in a special reserve fund only for this. It can only be used for this, that people can apply for, and we have to approve it. Planning and Zoning Commission has to approve it. So if somebody comes in and it can only be used for the rehabilitation construction of affordable housing. In other words, not for studies. I'm tired of studies. We get grants for studies other places. So somebody actually wants to fix something or build something, and they can show that it's affordable, and we have this fund, they can come and apply to us, and we can approve it. That's my vision. And I modeled that based on, I know there's a regulation in Bethel that did it. Okay.
It's a good end game.
What?
I say it's a very good end game. It's going to end up somewhere.
Yeah. And frankly, these guys get credit for it. So if there's affordable housing somewhere, you could say, hey, anchors are, I mean, they are. And I'm, it's good for everyone. I hope it fills our responsibility. They've offered it, we're kind of recommending it, but because we don't have the specific thing on there. The analogy I would think would be in an open space fund. You notice how for re-subdivision, we have these fee in lieu of, and we get this, what happens with this money that we get? It goes in a fund and it gets used to purchase viable open space instead of these little pieces here and there as part of a subdivision. That, to me, is the analogy that I can think of. So
I just don't want to see it spent on lawnmowers. And,
absolutely. It can't be spent on anything unless we approve it. That's sort of where I want it. That's kind of what I'm insisting on, is because we're doing it. And I want this board, this commission, to oversee, to approve the thing. If we don't like it, we don't approve.
I'm all for that.
I can enshrine, Harry Smith, town planner, I can enshrine that in this statement a little more clearly. I don't get to that till the site plan resolution and weigh in the condition. Is something that refers, just as Chuck mentioned, to a housing trust fund, which is defined in state statutes, and there's a purpose for limitation on how you expend the money, just as he said, constructing, rehabilitating, or repairing housing affordable to families of low or moderate income, and refer to the section of the statute in there. So it's going to be tailored down to that.
Okay, good, very good.
Okay. Harry, do you want to continue? I guess anyone else? Or?
It sounds like there's a consensus to go with one and eliminate one alt, and maybe rephrase some of the wording in number one to make it clearer. And I can work on that. And if anybody has any specific input, feel free to get in touch. I think Massimo had a comment, but I don't know.
I don't think Massimo should comment. Sorry, I hate to.
Not part of the deliberations, unfortunately, because I'm not sitting in for anyone. But I'm happy to hear from you at some other point.
I don't want to be overturned because they said,
So I'm just going to want to take up too much time here that is not necessary. So typical finding, coastal management. These are all required findings. Next, 1, 2, 3, 4 about master plan approval. Again, statement you're approving the amended application. Here are the conditions. So I will put in the amount $77,000 here in the yellow. And again, here's the reference to the Housing Trust Fund and the state section, the law section, what it would be used for. Proposing this be required as a lump sum before the first zoning permit or the First building permit is issued. Permit right here, which it doesn't. Sorry, I'm just going to go back and make sure I write that down so I don't lose that. Statement on the uses as a condition of the approval. Those are from forward. Number 7 is wrong. It should be 3, which is right below it. I'm proposing this here and want to see what you feel about this. Was there some discussion about the proposed use in building D right adjacent to the pathway along the river, which has been proposed for use by a cafe, which would be, I think, a wonderful potential use there that would help animate the waterfront. This would limit any change in use of this floor area by use other than a cafe to a use that would be open in terms of patronage to the public at large. Now, just my suggestion. I think that is the idea, is to have a use there that will help animate the public space. This would be proposed to, if the applicant wants to change the use, you'd have to come back basically through the zoning map amendment process, which would give the commission the most discretion possible. It's like not just a special exception, it's change in regulation. So that would allow some flexibility, but give the commission a great amount of say in what happens there and state up front what's desired use in that location. So it sounds like that's, but let me know if, going through this pretty quickly, if you have comments afterwards as individual commissioners, please let me know in the period between now and the 28th. Number 4 is just to ensure that as this property is divided, which is really now one integrated development, that there be appropriate provisions for vehicular movement between the two differently owned properties that will exist in the future, and for vehicles and pedestrians. I'm sure that some kind of documentation is being prepared as part of the sale of the property, but this would ensure that such documentation is submitted and the format is acceptable to the town council and type of documentation. Number 5 would require that all features of the existing development be brought up to original requirements and maintained in terms of light poles that might be damaged or need to be replaced, pruning of vegetation. Again, I put in a requirement to have a Connecticut licensed arborist do that or correct that, and having a professional engineer complete an inspection of the existing stormwater management system and any needed cleaning or maintenance of it be done. So basically, it's going to be like a certified certified used car kind of approach. We get that dated and it needs to be done. Number 6 would require modification or new easements for the following purposes: the public access for all those provisions in the plan. There is an area on, move over to the plan here quickly and show you right here. That is not defined. Let me go back. So to go up here a bit, unclear on the subdivision plan that this strip here, which is basically the easement to Marine Systems Incorporated for access to Nellie Greens and the marina, Ross property currently owned by Ziegler, I believe, current owner of the whole PDD for Anchor Reef, that will actually be subject to a public access easement in favor of the public to the town for access down here to this public parking and access to the Riverwalk. Be cleared up. Again, a lot of these are details. There's a requirement in the regs to have public improvements as part of PDD maintained by property owners of the PDD. So that requirement is right in here in Roman numeral I, number 3. And then we had talked, at least I had talked a little bit about allowing a friends of group, possibly add additional improvements to public easement areas, public open space along the river. Allow for that, subject to the approval of the town, with the proviso that these features wouldn't negatively impact views and that the property owners would not be responsible for additional features. We need an easement for stormwater drainage pipes that currently run to the property. There's a 24-inch, 8-inch, and some other elements of the existing drainage just flows simply through this site. We don't really have rights to drain from the town side. Has to do with the easement along Indian Neck and Maple Streets, widening that sidewalk out for possible multi-purpose path to be done by others, part of the Shoreline Greenway Trail. This is from the DEP. It was a recommendation that they modify the dock to allow and put some equipment on it that would allow kayaks to land and launch. So this would require that be done. And any language that would be needed to address seasonal availability of that. Move it for icing. Loading dock probably should be, I think it's still down there right now, but several of those are usually seasonally removed or often. There is an error on the existing deed with respect to map reference, and that might need to be updated anyway to refer to the maps as part of this. Moving down to, this would be a condition that would require acceptance of the work required by the remedial action plan, the environmental cleanup by the DEP. And I should add in the filing of the environmental land use restriction into this, which I did not do, and that both would all need to be done before any COs are issued for the development. And this again, until the cleanup's done. Before allow site plan approval to have a condition that before any construction activities, there would be a little more beefed up tree protection plan. There's something already in the plans. It takes it out to the drip line. I'd like to check on that with some of the people who are more involved with trees, see if that needs to be expanded at all. We had talked about, at least I had talked about, requiring notification of new residents that there were public access rights to portions of the development, and that they would get a copy of the public access plan. I think the applicant agreed to that in the public hearing process. This would provide for condition of the site plan approval that the public dock would be repaired. Charlie has needs a little work as you're walking through it. There's a couple of boards that are cracked or missing even, and viewed by the town engineer. So site plan resolution has a requirement that the town engineer review an assessment of the dock. This last one would allow inclusion of a requirement in the site plan approval about the completion of the traffic calming improvements. That's it. So I can move on to the site plan one. I can go through a little less detail because it's a little, largely redundant in several aspects. I won't go through the recitals. think we've addressed.
Yeah, if you can go through the areas where you have questions from us or you need comments from us.
Yeah, I think we pretty much covered it. If you're comfortable with that, because basically it enshrines a lot of these provisions. So technically I set it up so the PDD approval allowed you to do a little bit more in terms of the site plan approval than you normally would, because implementing the PDD. I don't think there's really anything else I have questions on. Yeah, just a couple things I haven't mentioned, though. I mean, there is a see down here. This is an area of where they're going to place jute matting because of the proposed fill and steepness of that slope. It's not as steep out here, but I think since we're right next to the Branford River, and I mentioned that in my staff comments, they really should take that all the way to the end as a treatment, minimize erosion to the maximum extent. One thing I was hoping to include was first of all, that this would be, this public access path would be built as part of, they break it into phases. This would be done before any CO is issued. That if it's broken into phases, that this be part of the first phase. Also, during later phases or portions of construction, that this public access area be open as much as possible, consistent with safety. That determination be left to be proposed by the applicant and decided by the building official. It's possible that even when they're building Building D, leave open possibly the access here and some portion of this area, possibly even access to the public dock. I mean, that's sort of an open question. I'm sensitive to the fact that we've got comments from DEP, as a matter of fact, about the fact that, it took so long for a pathway to be constructed, and that's because the other two buildings never got built, and that's where the requirement was. So I wanted to move that as far up in the process. Should something similar happen here, that won't happen. Wanted to note that. I'm proposing in the site plan, if once you read it through, a number of financial guarantees for soil and erosion control, public access amenities, which allowed, covered by a bond, the PDD section of the zoning regs. I think that's pretty much it in terms of questions. Everything else pretty much follows through with what I already mentioned. Again, if anybody has a specific question on any of this as you go through it, let me know. There'll also be a couple conditions on stormwater system maintenance, similar to what was included in the Exit 55 days in development, because of the town engineer and requirements the town's going to be facing in terms of compliance with its MS4 permit. I think that's really it.
Great. Okay, thanks, Harry. Then we'll get those. You'll review them again, make the revisions on the on that fee in lieu of thing, and do one for a resub resolution. And so we'll be ready to vote on that at our next meeting on the 28th. Okay. So thank you, Harry. I'm going to suggest you take a 5-minute break. It's almost 9:30. Just let's come back at 25 of. We got a few more things to cover here, but I'd like to take a quick break. So we're in recess for 5 minutes. Okay, who do we have? Who are we waiting for here? See John.
John's here.
Okay. Joe Biuzzo. Is Joe back?
I'd have to unmute him, Harry Smith.
Is he around? Or
But ask him to unmute. Might not be back yet.
Okay. Fred. I see Fred.
Here.
Okay. And Joe Chadwick. Yep. Joe's muted.
Joe Biuzzo.
Who's there?
Joe Biuzzo's here. I see Joe Chadwick. Marcy.
Marcy's here.
Right. And Paul Higgins. Paul here. Paul, I see his name. I think he's muted, but. Paul is here. And Massimo.
Massimo's here.
Massimo's here. Okay. So it looks like we're all here.
Oh.
Okay. We'll call the meeting back in session then. We're on old business. We're on item number 4 of old business, which is the Stony Creek Estates, 47 Gould Lane. This is a special exception modification for the residential open space development. And I understand that we're still waiting for legal feedback on this one. Is that correct, Harry?
Harry Smith, Town Planner. Yes, Mr. Chairman, that is correct.
Okay, so we'll continue to table that. That's one that will need a public hearing, and Harry will set the date after he speaks with me. Next one, item number 5 is 49 Leeds Island Road. That's a special exception modification for the convenience store at that location. And there's some deficiencies in the application. And are you recommending tabling this at this time as well? Is that correct?
Yes. Again, Harry Smith, Town Planner. We sent an email listing all the incomplete items and identifying the issues. I have gotten a message back from the applicants, but haven't been able to return it yet. So get back in touch with them and how far we can move forward.
Okay, so we'll table item number 5. Item number 6, Tracy Miles, 148, 172 Main Street. This is the PDD master modification. This is the property, the Sterling Ridge House on the bottom. Is that correct? And we need a public hearing on that yet, but we're not ready to schedule that yet. Is that right, Harry, or what's going on?
Yeah, Harry Smith, Town Planner. There are a couple of things I want to get more information on. There's involved, and I just want to see if I can track those down to make sure they don't create any conflict with the commission possibly moving ahead with this. Once I've figured that out, I've looked through the file of Sterling Ridge and no other issues I can see. I would probably talk to you about having a public hearing on the 28th if I can move it that fast.
Okay, so we may have that a public hearing at our next meeting. Okay, and item number 7, 8 Howard Avenue, 2-lot subdivision. Are we ready to proceed on that?
There were some issues identified in the staff report. Our former assistant planner is working part-time remotely from Pennsylvania, helping us out, which is great. Involved in this from the beginning. As you recall, it was the proposal for a 2-family dwelling to replace the existing Quonset hut on the property. I've talked to Jim Preddy, and he had other conflicts, and also wanted a chance to look at the staff comments and present a whole package that addressed them at your next meeting on the 28th. So suggestion is to table this to the 28th at this point with the concurrence of the app.
Okay, so we'll table item number 7. We'll take that up on the 28th, assuming we're ready to go. Brings to item number 8, which is a Nicole Gerosa, 2325 Linden Avenue, coastal site plan, rebuild single-family house. And I understand there's a new application that we need to accept that was just filed that requires a public hearing, so we would not hear that one this evening. Is that correct, hearing?
That's correct. Again, the applicant didn't want to proceed with both of them together. They just filed the application for the creating an earth modification application yesterday. This is again Criscolo Engineering, so I talked to them about that, and they want to do the whole thing at once on the 28th, and we can get it into the public hearing ad for the 28th tomorrow, except the associated new application tonight.
Okay, so then we will
table
item number 8 till the 28th. It can be considered along with the new application. Okay, that brings us into new business, which first item is Mark Wallman, applicant, Donald Anderson, owner, and also Anthony J. Jean A. Carreno, owner, subdivision modification. Is that something we can, this is a lot line adjustment that we need to confirm is not a subdivision? Is that what this is about?
That's exactly right, Mr. Chairman. Harry Smith, planner again. I've made Mr. Wallman a co-host and have unmuted him. Attorney Wallman, who is here representing the applicant, or is the applicant. I also have the plan. I can put that up on the screen if that would be helpful.
Sure. So do we, is Mr. Wallman ready to speak?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Mark Wallman. I'm an attorney in New Haven, Connecticut. This map shows the area where between the two lots, number 40 Thimble Farm Road and number 44 Thimble Farm Road, right over here, which is where the lot line modification will occur. The reason for the modification is that the estate of Anthony Papa owns 40 Thimble Farm Road. This is the last of the pieces of property which it's owned, and closing out the estate. And there is a purchaser for the property. But in doing a survey of the property, they noticed that there was a slight encroachment over the neighboring parcel. A portion of the driveway encroaches. And the parties have talked, and there's been an agreement between the two of them whereby the owner of 44 Thimble Farms Road will convey this small little portion over here to 40 Thimble Farm Road in order to eliminate the encroachment. Both lots are will be conforming after the minor lot line adjustment, and we would ask for consent to the adjustment.
Chuck Anderson here. Thank you, Attorney Wallman. Harry, anything else?
No, I just want to note, and I believe Attorney Wallman can confirm this, that Pine Orchard zoning, this is within the Pine Orchard zoning area. And I believe the zoning enforcement officer down there has confirmed that both lots would remain conforming with respect to their requirements.
That is correct, and I believe I've sent you a copy of the form from the Pine Orchard indicating that they have approved the dimensions of both lots. That's correct.
As the planning commission for the whole town, including Pine Orchard and Short Beach, where they have independent zoning, you are in the position of looking at section 610 of the subdivision regulations and saying whether you believe this requires a full subdivision review or not. It looks to me that this does not constitute a subdivision. There's no new lot created. It's just a transfer of a sliver of property to, as was stated, correct an encroachment.
Okay, sure. Thank you, Harry. Any questions from anyone? If not, does someone want to make a motion finding that the proposed lot line revision between 40 Thimble Farms Road and 44 Thimble's Farm Road does not constitute either a subdivision or re-subdivision requiring approval from the Branford Planning and Zoning?
John Lust, Commissioner. I'll make that motion.
Okay, motion made by John. Is there a second?
Chadwick seconds.
Joe Chadwick seconds. All in favor. John Lust, are you in favor?
Mr. Chairman, technically,
yes.
I think you need to also include in the motion that you're approving the subdivision modification.
Oh, okay. Okay. And we also, that it doesn't constitute, that the proposed lot line revision between 40 and 44 Thimble Farms Road does not constitute a subdivision or re-subdivision, and we approve the lot line modification. So with that revised motion, are you okay with that, John?
Yes, I'll make that motion.
Okay,
John
and
Lust.
second by Joe. All in favor? John Lust, you in favor?
And John Lust in favor?
Joe Vayuso?
Let me find him. Okay, you should be able to unmute Joe. Yes.
Joe Vayuso in favor. Thank you, Harry.
Welcome.
Joe Chadwick?
Chadwick's in favor.
Marcy?
Marcy in favor.
And Chair is also in favor. So thank you, Attorney Wallman.
Thank you very much.
Brings us item number 2 of new business, which is a coastal site plan demo, 243 Linden Avenue, Lisa J. Latanza, applicant and owner. And understand that just came in, Harry, and so we're not ready for that one.
Harry Smith, Town Planner. Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so we can table that. Now, do we need to add to the agenda the new application with 2325 Linden Avenue, or do we just?
You probably should if you want to set the public hearing date. Just note that it's section 6.8 special exception application 2325 Linden Avenue. Nicole Girosa, trustee, applicant, and owner.
Is there a motion to add that new application Harry just referenced to the agenda as new business?
Chadwick
Joe Vayuso.
Sorry, Joe, you got it.
I'm sorry.
Okay, we'll give the motion to Joe Vayuso, and we'll give the second to Joe Chadwick. All those in favor, John?
John
You
Lust.
in favor?
John Lust in favor.
Joe Vayuso in favor?
Joe Vayuso in favor.
Okay, Joe Chadwick?
Joe Chadwick's in favor.
Marcy?
Marcy Paluzzi in favor.
And Chair is also in favor, so it's added to the agenda, so we will likely schedule that matter. And we have authority Harry has authority in consultation with me to schedule the public hearing date, and the expectation is that's going to be for our next meeting on the 28th.
Thank you.
Brings us then to other business. Item number 1, a bond establishment for 80 Bradley Street.
Harry Smith, Town Planner. We have a memorandum from Daniel Brennan, the zoning enforcement officer. Sponsor request for the bond driveway apron and landscaping for a new 2-family residence at 80 Bradley Street. Is recommending the commission approve a bond in the amount of $2,000 for the driveway apron and landscaping. Can be
Is there a motion to establish a bond for $2,000 for 80 Bradley Street as recommended by the zoning enforcement officer?
I'll make that motion, Chuck. John Lust.
Motion made by John. Is there a second?
Seconds.
Second by Joe Chadwick. All in favor. John, are you in favor?
John Lust in favor.
Joe Vayuso.
Joe Vayuso in favor.
Joe Chadwick.
Joe Chadwick is in favor.
Marcy.
Marcy's in favor.
And Chair is also in favor. Item number 2 of other business, referral from Pine Orchard Zoning Commission, zoning regulation amendment.
Okay, Harry Smith, Town Planner. This requires a little bit of explanation. Technically, when amendments are made to zoning regulations in Pine Orchard and Short Beach, it kicks in a provision of the statute that we never really think about because in Branford, there's a combined planning and zoning commission. So in portions of the town outside of Pine Orchard and Short Beach, there is no requirement for a referral from the zoning commission to the planning commission because essentially referring from your right hand to your left hand. Communities where there's separate commissions, and there are several in Connecticut. If a zoning commission proposes a regulation amendment, it needs to make a referral for a report from the planning commission. So that mechanism exists and is active when we're talking about zoning changes, Pine Orchard or Short Beach. So a referral was sent up to town, and I discussed this with Peter Burdon, who is I believe the attorney or member of Pine Arch Association. And we have this referral in front of the commission. You should have had in your packets a copy of it. I actually believe Michelle Martin sent it out to you probably yesterday. It is a small change to permit patios within the sideline setbacks. Actually just crosses out that word patio under the definition of accessory building, adds it to the definition of a structure. It's not a very significant change. Potentially an impact maybe, but in terms of wording and what's in the actual regulations, I don't think there's really any planning. I think it makes a lot of difference either way in terms of the town's plan of conservation development. So another perspective you'd be commenting on it from. So there's, if you want to make a comment, you could make a comment of no comment back to them, and I will submit something in writing so they have it for their files as they proceed. Or if there's anything else you want to add or say about it, let me know.
Thank you, Harry. Does anyone have any comments? Seems like a minor amendment. It sounds like I understand what's going on, that they probably should have been doing this whenever there's an amendment in Pine Orchard zoning. They should be sending it to us, but they don't. And so apparently when I took a look at the statute, I said, I guess they should have, because they don't have planning commission in Pine Orchard. So we are the planning commission. And whenever you have separate planning commissions, the way the statute's set up, you can have a combined planning and zoning commission, or you can have separate planning and zoning commission. And they're a separate zoning commission. And when they're separate, you're supposed to refer to the planning commission. They're supposed to make a comment whether it's consistent with the plan of conservation development, or make no comment. So I agree with Gary that I don't see any inconsistency with the plan of conservation development, minor something. So I don't, anyone else have any thoughts?
I don't see anything to take an exception to. We're taking a not situation in one paragraph and putting it into a not situation in another paragraph. It's a purely textual change. So we should just send it with no exception taken.
I will note that a person named Lisa Latanza raised their hand. I don't know if what might want to comment on. I'll check in the chat. There is a chat. Oh, she wanted to talk about 243 Linden Avenue, which not going to already went over that. Is not going to be taken up tonight, apparently. So that will be probably taken up at a future meeting, possibly the 28th. So please get in touch with me directly. And I can let you know when that would be taken up. Reach me at the main number here at 203-488-1255, or you can email me at hsmith@branford-ct.gov.
Thank you, Harry. You understand that, Ms. Latanza? We're not even considering that tonight. So call Harry and he can fill you in. So thank you. Okay. Okay. So there's a consensus. You can send it with no comments, or it's not inconsistent with the plan of conservation development.
Okay.
Right. Okay. Item number 3 is bond establishment for 102591 West Main Street, Branhaven Plaza.
Harry Smith, Town Planner. We have a memorandum from, again, Daniel Brennan, the zoning enforcement officer, with respect to the missing landscaping at the Branhaven Plaza, which is the Big Y Pole Shopping Center. They are trying to lease up some vacant space there, and they need to be in compliance with their previous approval in order to be found eligible for just a simple zoning permit and it fit up approval, a minor site plan approval for the exterior changes they want to. So the bond is recommended in the amount of $12,080. You would approve the outstanding landscaping.
Someone will make a motion to establish a bond for $12,080 for 1025 West Main Street, the Branhaven Plaza for landscaping improvements.
So moved, John Lust.
Motion made by John. Is there a second?
Joe Vayuso seconds.
Couple seconds. Further discussion. All in favor? John, are you in favor?
John Lust in favor.
Joe Vayuso in favor.
Joe Vayuso in favor.
Joe Chadwick.
Chadwick's in favor.
Marcy.
Marcy's in favor.
Chair's also in favor. Brings us item number 4, discussion of communication from Matt O'Buck regarding issuance of a zoning permit authorization, issuance of a building permit for construction at 8 Lewis Drive. I guess Mr. Buck asked to speak with us about this matter, although I don't think it's anything we can address, but Mr. Buck, you're free to
See him on.
Mr. Buck or Harry, what?
Unmuting him now. I think I've covered this before, so I'll let him. What he'd like to.
Okay, Mr. O'Buck.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes. Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Happy New Year, everybody. I don't know if my video's up too, but I think it's supposed to be, but if it isn't, then no biggie. So all right, I didn't understand. If you could just tell, I think the chairman, if you could just let me know what you meant by there's no. It sounded like you said there's no reason for me to talk on this call. That's what I kind of thought, but can you kind of expand on that just so
Sure.
I know?
No, absolutely. From what I've read, I want to let you tell me because I may be misunderstanding.
Okay,
what I read, it sounds.
Okay, let me. I don't want to waste anybody's time. Obviously, anybody. So, quick history. I mean, we moved in here 5 years ago, and a lot of stuff has happened. Personally, just living here, there's been a lot of things in this tiny development, and and then personally had a major, surgeries, 3 of them after a car accident, which has changed my life significantly over the past 3 years. But, so I'm struggling just to kind of get through every day, but, doing my best, just so you know. Bunch of other odds and ends happening personally in our lives. But to put things over the edge, we moved here in good faith, right? So we moved into Branford. We liked this little house. We liked the idea of a little lot, knowing we'd have little privacy, which we expected. We have a small lot with a little privacy in the backyard. And that was enough for us. We bought that house knowing that full well. But, now with what's going on 8 Lewis Drive is totally invaded our privacy 100%. We have nowhere to go now because now the way the house is oriented that they decided to put up here on this lot, and they started building in July, of which we were given no warning. I guess you don't have to do that. That's, common courtesy. Obviously, everybody would like to know that when you live on a postage stamped lot that there's going to be a house built next door to you in the summer. But that we weren't even given that darn courtesy, which I think is, not very neighborly. I don't have to say that to anybody on this call. In any case, so now we have zero privacy. When I went to the planning and zoning meeting, which I had to find out about on my own back in 2018, they presented, the Pantani brothers and I think Paul Bruno presented plans to re-up their planning and zoning site plan and everything, and that got approved back then. And I went in there and I put in my input in good faith. I have it here in front of me. You guys have it, obviously. I'm sure you have it there. Do you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I hear other people talking. So in any case, there was plans approved. I saw them. And I was happy the lot was going to be developed because at that time, the lot was still overgrown. We were living 10 feet away from pretty much a little mini rainforest that was totally just overgrown. It was horrible. And it took us a long time. It took us 3 years to get them to, maintain that lot. But okay, so in any case, out of nowhere now, all of a sudden, there's building started, and we knew nothing about it. It's not the plans that were approved in 2018. And we don't see any plans that were approved in the new planning and zoning meeting for the structure that's going up on this lot. That's, totally disoriented. Does not, now this is planning and zoning. So I think this is relevant. What I'd like to ask the Planning and Zoning Commission on this call for the record is, please tell me, if you could, what does it mean under on section 3.2b, paragraph 2? The applicable standards are designed to recognize and protect the current pattern of the development. I've heard attorneys explain it, and I heard somebody on this call talk about, attorneys think they're Webster, and they think they can redefine words and everything, and everybody can define it. But we've all done patterns. We've been doing them with Fisher Price toys since we were 2 years old. All you have to do is look at an aerial view of a cul-de-sac, and you'll see what a typical cul-de-sac pattern is. Well, when you do an aerial view of ours, and I have pictures I can present here, if I can share my screen. It says I'm disabled. I can, if anybody is interested in any way, shape, or form what's going on here, I think that, it would be good for Branford to hear this. Can I share my screen, please?
Sure. You can share your screen. Okay. But I will. I sort of.
He's got no video. He doesn't know it.
Well, yeah. You're not on video, so we can't.
Well, it says the host disabled attendee screen sharing. I'm trying to share my screen, but it says the host disabled it. So clearly, the host has my video disabled too.
Harry, you're on mute. Harry, you're muted.
I'm not muted.
No, not you, Mr. Buck. Harry was muted.
Harry Smith, Town Planner. We can't see anything on your screen, Mr. O'Buck. So I've.
Okay, no, here it goes. No, now I can share. Somebody let it.
I did that, but I don't think we still could see anything because we can't see any visual from you at all.
Oh,
he's got his camera.
Oh, Mr. Buck. So what I'm presuming what you. Oh, okay. So here we go. Okay, so we can see something.
So let's take a look here. There's no particular order here, but let's just say, this was the one area of privacy that we had right here. And this particular, this is our little area of privacy. Take a look. Now, these are small lots on 8 Lewis Drive. This is that little area that we had. It was nice and private. But now if you take a look at the structure going up there, you'll see the garage. Above the garage, and that's the front living room too, and the front door next to the garage on the right. But above that is the bedroom lanai. Okay, the bedroom lanai not only looks into our backyard now, which is only about 25 feet away, so that's the bedroom lanai. Not only that, my daughter's bedrooms are right directly across from his bedroom lanai that looks out, and then his third floor lookout. He's got that nice third floor lookout. That looks, there's no way we could put anything up to get any privacy. It's just not going to happen. So you see, now we have this little area of privacy where that little table is, and we were happy. We were fine. With the house that was supposed to go up on that lot when I was in the 2018 planning meeting, didn't. As far as I know, this structure never got approved. Furthermore, this structure didn't even get signed off on until the 29th of September, and it was framed up to the ridgeline on the roof by the 29th of September. So, I have a lot of issues here, and anyone here in this meeting would, all of you would. There's no doubt about it. Not only, so let me tell you quickly what's happened here, right? So we've got zoning issues. Obviously there's zoning issues. There's no doubt about that, because this does not fit the pattern, and it does not protect the pattern of this development. Building department issues. The house was framed before the permit was approved on the 29th. The plans used for the foundation permit were not approved by planning and zoning. Okay, excuse me, I hear people. Does 8 Lewis comply with deed restrictions? I'm not sure about that. I'm looking at deed restrictions, and I have an attorney looking at them now. I have somebody who's going to represent me finally. They're out of Hartford. And then 8 Lewis drive impacts the fair market value of my home. There's no doubt about that. Appraisals just have told me that, or friends of mine. There's not going to be any issue proving that. And we lost our privacy. I'm mostly concerned about the privacy issues and the property value, obviously. The way you guys run your business here in Branford, that's your business. I mean, clearly you didn't do the right things. There's no doubt about it. Here's what it looks like. This is what we have to look at when we drive in our development. That's a cul-de-sac. When you drive in the cul-de-sac, you can see the house in the upper right corner with the red door. You can see how that's oriented around the cul-de-sac on that side. No problem. That looks good. Then you got Paul Bruno's house kind of straight ahead, maybe a little bit left off center, but it's, flood facing. Then you've got a house that's facing the exact same orientation, if not even a little bit left rotation of Paul Bruno's house, facing directly into my house, which is, I hear too many people talking. It's hard for me to do this. I just want to get through this quick, just so I can get this on the record. And you see that house is, directly pointing into my home. It's not fitting the pattern of the development. There's no way to say that. Here it is. Here's another picture. I mean, you can't say that fits the pattern. If there's somebody, can somebody from planning and zoning, anybody tell me what that means, protecting the pattern of the development, so I can hear it from you?
Okay, thank you, Mr. O'Bucker. Do you have anything else you want to show us?
No, I'm asking. I'm not done. I'm asking for somebody just to.
Well, please give us other information you want, and then we'll.
Okay. Oh, I'm asking for you to tell me what that means. It's in your regulations. You're planning on something. I just want to know what that means. The applicable standards are designed to recognize and protect the current pattern of the development. What does that mean? What does a pattern mean in your textbook? What does it mean?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. O'Buck.
I'm asking a question.
Okay.
This is a discussion. It says it on the agenda.
Chuck Andersteer, thank you, Mr. O'Buck. I understand that the zoning official signed off, authorized found the house to be in compliance with the zoning. Is that correct?
What?
Gary?
Planning. Yeah, so a zoning permit was issued and a building permit was authorized by the zoning enforcement officer. I've explained to Mr. O'Buck that if he has issues or concerns or problems with that the route of appeal is to the zoning board of appeals, and provided him an explanation, application form, and so forth, because statutorily by law, they are the group that handles any grievance of a member of the public property owner about an action of the zoning enforcement officer. Planning and Zoning Commission can't do anything legally about it. So you need to go to the zoning board of appeals.
But you guys approved this house in 2018. The house that's on the lot isn't what you approved. Is that not a problem, or that's okay? I can put any structure I want up after you approve something. It doesn't matter what I put up. As long as the setbacks, right? You can put anything up.
Let me answer if I would. My understanding is that at that point, they were proposing something that required a variance and other approvals in the Planning and Zoning Commission, a whole different layout of the house, different amount of land covered, whatever it was. Now they have proposed something different. That's why I didn't get a notice. Something can be simply approved by the zoning enforcement officer, and he found it in compliance with the regulations and issued the approval. And that action is only subject to review by the zoning board of appeals by law. So
I didn't, when I went in to get all the paperwork associated with this, I don't see anything in there that shows that this was approved by planning and zoning. When did that happen? When did it get approved? So I know.
It didn't need to be, is what I'm telling you. It's something to be approved just by the zoning enforcement officer. You disagree then with the action of the zoning enforcement officer. The only appeal route for you is the zoning board of appeals. If you don't like what they say, you can go to court.
Can I get the documentation that shows he approved it and when and who did it and what date? Where I need to start.
My understanding is you got all that, but we can certainly provide you with that.
I don't have it. No, it's not in any of the documentation I took.
We can certainly provide that to you.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you know, happen to know the date when it was? When
I don't know off the top of my head. I do not.
No. Okay.
I can say we typically, if you looked at our agendas, we don't typically approve the construction of single family dwelling. Matter of fact, that we most of our stuff is the bigger projects, our commercial things, site plans, big developments. That's what we've heard tonight. Coastal site plans. If you're right near the water, we have to do it. But stuff like the location, construction of a house on a lot is typically, you don't have to even come before us. What you do is you just go for the zoning official and they sign off on it. And then if you think that zoning official made an error, and that's what your claim is, and I understand, I understand that the orientation of this is you're saying is doesn't fit in and so forth. And I don't know, your claim is that it doesn't, in any event, your claim is that they should never have signed off on it. And so the remedy is that you appeal that to the zoning board of appeals. We didn't sign off on this. We don't, because it's not something we typically sign off on. If you have an attorney, that's great. I would suggest get the paperwork from Harry, send it to them, and then, he should be able to direct you how to go.
Well, let me ask you this. What was this commission from the June 7th, 2018 meeting where it says there was an application 18-5.9 that in here, from Dennis Pantani, applicant, and Paul Bruno, owner, that it says that you approved, somebody did, Lust made a motion to approve the application with finding the revised conditions below. Was that your commission or is this something else? Like, I'm not being facetious. I don't know.
No, what I understood from Harry, I don't remember this, but I don't know what that was. Was it a subdivision modification or a coastal site plan, or what was it?
So it's really simple. Take a look at the picture that's up there. This lot.
Harry, what was the 2018 application? Do you know?
Mr. Chairman, Harry Smith, Town Planner. I don't know exactly. It was not for the design, though, of the house that is now being constructed.
No, it wasn't. Okay. Then I was very happy.
That is what I've been told, my understanding of it.
Yeah, I was happy at that time in 2018, but, clearly, okay, very simple. You look at the picture. It doesn't fit the pattern. Okay, let's just all agree here. And that, they took 12 years to sell this because they needed to find the right person for this. They found the right person. Unfortunately, the right person wanted something that really shouldn't have gone here. And we're the victims primarily here. I have other neighbors that are very unhappy about it. There's no doubt about it. To other people think it's funny, and everyone who comes by, it doesn't matter who looks at it, UPS driver, name it. Anybody who comes by knows it's a joke. I mean, it never ever should have been put in here. I get it. You can, if you can get away with it and whatever, and you can do it and you can live with it, that's fine. Do it.
Mr. Buck, I understand your point, and I understand what you're saying, that it doesn't fit in and so forth. Well, what I'm telling you is that we didn't approve what is built now. We don't have to approve what is built now. Who approved what was built now? Who signed off on that was the zoning official. And if you think that he was wrong in doing that, you file an appeal to the zoning board of appeals.
As long as
that's what I'm recommending you do. That's the remedy.
If somebody can produce that documentation, which I was not given when I've asked for all the documentation months ago, if I could see, who signed off on it, because as far as I know, at that time in July, don't forget they broke ground in July on this lot. They sold it and broke ground on it immediately. I don't think there's going to be any documents from that time frame of approving these plans that they broke ground for in July. I don't think that's going to happen. But if you can, and you do find that, please send it to me so I can talk to the attorney.
Chuck Andrews here. There should have been a sign-off of this proposal by the zoning enforcement officer. So I think you're perfectly can ask for that, and the remedy is to appeal to the zoning board.
Okay, I just need the documentation. That's all. The only things I have right now are the foundation permit, which was, I have an unsigned one. I don't have one that's signed. And then I have the building permit for the structure, which was approved on September 29th of 2020. Well after the construction, it was, like I said, it was already framed up to the ridge. So anyway, you know what? I don't ask for much here in my life. I got a lot going on. I got so many things going on personally, like we all do. We all do. I just want people to be, kind of at least sincere and honest and, do the right things. I mean, at a very bare minimum, somebody could have knocked on our door and said, hey, look, this is what we're going to be doing. Can we talk about it? Whatever. We could have prepared. Could have done something earlier. Doing this, knowing that this doesn't fit. Anyone who looks at this knows it doesn't fit. It's just, you drive by it looks ugly. Our neighborhood is horrible, but now not only does it look ugly, but we don't have any privacy. I lost all the semblance of tiny bit of privacy that we have. And it's not fair. It just is not fair. There's no way to say it is. Not for the taxes I pay. Not for what we pay to live here in this town. It's not fair. And you guys work for the town. So, whoever did not do good.
We get a big pass.
I get it. I understand. Believe me, I've done tons of volunteer stuff in my life, and I get it. I apologize for that. I didn't mean that, and I really didn't. I just want the right things to be done. And you know what? This thing hurts us the most. And I'm only asking for acknowledgement, and we want some sort of restitution. I don't want this to go crazy because it makes no sense. It makes zero sense. So if somebody get me that documentation, at least if I could see that and, you can produce that document, I can, at least think about what next steps I'm going to take. But, in reality, there are other remedies potentially here. And I think the town should think I think on the record now, I'm thinking that this is a public meeting, that I think that the town should take into consideration greatly doing something for, what's happened here to us, because, we're at most victims. We've dealt with a lot since we lived here with the building of the house across the street, which took a year. Now this house has taken a very long time to build. We lived with this lot being overgrown forever. We've been dealing with dumpster issues, with this building lot and dust and dirt and builders starting at 6 a.m. I've got 3 daughters, two stepdaughters, 2 daughters, young, teenagers that listen. They go to school out of their rooms now because they have no choice. And there's guys over there F-bombing and stuff like this at 7 a.m, 8 a.m. when they're trying to go to school. I mean, it's really been horrific. Not just the fact that the structure's going up, but just the way everything's gone down since there. And we've even had a police incident. We've had cement thrown at our cars, concrete or mud bath. With the mud underlay, somebody hucked that out. I got it on video at our cars. So,
okay. And I'm sure you understand that's bad. That we can't, that's a private issue. But understand, Harry, you can get him to sign off for the zone.
I'll make sure he's gotten it. We'll send you another copy. It was sent before. We'll make sure you have the documents that we have.
Okay, great. And then get those to your attorney and then see what you do.
Okay.
Okay.
Very good. I'll ping you tomorrow, Harry.
I don't know what you mean. I'd be here to give you the documents. So we'll have them here.
Okay.
I'll email you. You might want to wait till I email you to make sure you're not making an unnecessary trip. That's
okay. That's perfect. No problem. Yeah, I'm not going to be there I got tons of stuff going on. I got doctor stuff in the morning too. So, all right. Well, thank you very much for listening. I appreciate it. Happy New Year.
Okay, great. You bet, Mr. Buck. Okay, Harry, next item on the agenda is planner's report. What do you have? Anything else for us?
I do not, other than to announce that we have hired a new assistant town planner, gentleman named Evan Brining, I believe, and he is from New York State, just over the line from Greenwich, and be starting Monday the 25th. So hopefully be introducing him at the next meeting of the commission on the 28th.
Okay, great. Excellent. Anything else?
That's all.
Okay, great. Anyone else have anything else? Someone want to make a motion to adjourn?
Joe Vayuso adjourns.
Okay, motion by Joe. Is there a second?
Chadwick seconds.
Okay. John, are you in favor of adjourning?
John Lust in favor.
Joe Vayuso?
Joe Vayuso in favor.
Joe Chadwick?
Joe Chadwick, absolutely.
Marcy?
Aye.
I'm also in favor. So good night, everyone.
Good night. Good night.
Hey.
Night.
This program was brought to you in part through the support of the Town of Branford. Watch town meetings and other videos on demand at BranfordTV.org.